Old material.
Welcome to the Damaged Goods podcast. We are your hosts, Jess Robert, the tanned, tattooed triple threat,
Wow.
and Ill Vibe, the recording artist, who I have no alliteration for today.
I'll take recording artist, although it's less inspired than past introductions, but
It's true. I thought I'd give myself the inspired one.
I like
time.
it. I like the triple T.
Ill Vibe's new album, Anti-Gravity, is out now, and you can find it on Spotify, iTunes, Tidal, and wherever else music is found. A big thanks, as always, to lyricvids.com, the web's #1 lyric video animation company. Today, we have a super special guest. Ill Vibe and I saw him live about, 6 months ago or so?
I'm the worst at knowing when something happened in the span of time.
I think, let's go 6 months
Let's say 6 months ago because the listeners don't know. No one's at home being like, I think it was 7.
Saw him live. We're hooked. The one and only comedian Mike Carrozza.
Mike Carrozza and the crowd goes wild.
Hi, everybody. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me, you guys. I'm really excited.
Yeah, thanks for coming by the Neon Pineapple Studio.
Ooh,
Do you like our neon pineapple?
I do. I dig it. I noticed it before. Figured we'd bring it up on the podcast.
So I'll put it in there right in the beginning because if anybody's like me and likes to look people up at, are we all good over there?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. I just got really loud all of a sudden.
Yeah, nope.
If anyone's like me and likes to research people as they're listening to podcasts, you can find him at www.mikecarrozza.com and add him to the gram or to Twitter at Mike Carrozza.
Yeah, it's a weird spelling though. So look it on the episode and you'll get it right. I'm sure.
Do you want to spell it? You can spell it.
It's Carrozza.
Nice.
And it's just there's too many consonants in there. That's what it is. It's super.
Do you have any like poems or jokes or rhymes you tell about spelling your name? Comedians always be doing like 2 R's and 2 Z's. Like,
Well, you know what?
Do they?
Not really. I don't have anything
No,
like
that's
that.
okay.
But Deanne Smith I did her the music for her podcast, and at the end of the episode, she would always give me credit for doing the music, and she would say that's Mike Carrozza with 2 R's, 2 Z's, and 2 A's, although not sequentially. And I was
Wow.
like, that's the only. All right, that's the closest I've gotten to having.
That's actually
anything.
a good way to explain it because that does make sense.
right?
you still need like a notepad to like figure it out.
Yeah. It's kind of like a riddle, but
Yeah.
My last name is Crapparata, so yours couldn't possibly be weirder and harder to understand than mine.
Crapparata?
Yeah.
It's just 2 T's, right?
No, I just mean in terms of
Oh, I see.
the fact that there's a random swear word at the beginning, so people struggle emotionally before they even get to the spelling of
They're
the
like,
rest of
excuse
it.
me, what's your name again?
And then they just want to talk about my childhood
Yeah.
and about
How was
childhood
the
nicknames.
schoolyard?
It wasn't good. It wasn't good to me. It wasn't good to me. My middle name is Will, which means my name is Anthony Willcrap. That's a real
Tight.
fact about my life. The
kind
people
of like Mike Will made it. I feel like it's
Kind
a good,
of like Mike
DJ,
Will made it,
DJ
yeah.
name.
less cool.
Yeah. I mean, this was your parents setting you up for later.
For
Nothing can hit you.
success.
Yeah.
I'm bulletproof now.
Exactly. You're completely fine no matter what anybody throws at you.
I'm having a paranoid moment that things are fucked up. So can I pause everything and then we can
course.
continue with the podcast?
We never
Okay.
do this.
And we're back.
Welcome to WK97.
Listen, quality's important to me for like the
Of course.
for like the 300 people who live and die by this podcast and like the 3 people who say, when's the next episode coming? It's important that I don't just butcher their ears with like me peeking on one ear and Mike
Yeah.
whispering on the
And
other.
it-
Yeah,
and
well, for what it's worth, I will continue whispering.
You have a nice whisper voice. I like it.
Yeah, I'm not going to say much. It's just going to come out on this.
A lot of late night nervous phone calls.
Yeah. I've had to keep it down, live with my folks for a very long time. You know what I mean?
Is that a true fact about you?
Oh, yeah. I lived with them for a long time. I think I moved out 6 months ago when I moved to Toronto.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So,
From Montreal,
From
right?
Montreal, yeah. So I moved out, came here because just comedy's better out here.
Mm-hmm.
And finally out of the folks' house. But why are we so quick to why? Why is that what everybody's looking forward to? I had it so good.
It's so true.
Are you enjoying the independent aspect?
Yeah, but I still kind of had that.
Sure. You had the best of both worlds.
Exactly. Like I would drive into town, do all the shows I wanted, had a job that I was saving money from, and now this one's kind of like out here. It's like I'm working, but I'm also just like paying for everything.
Yeah.
Rent's a lot.
Yeah, it's rough out
Toronto
here.
sucks.
Well, when I read like one of those like articles or whatever where they list the most expensive places to live in.
Oh,
Canada.
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and Montreal's up there.
No, because it's not. It's how big a city it is. Because what would it be? It would be like Toronto, Vancouver, Montreal. As
Maybe
far as
there
big
are just
cities
like
in Canada.
affordable areas
It's
of
a
Montreal.
very affordable big city.
Oh, yeah. Montreal is hella cheap. For what I'm paying for rent, I could probably have a 3-bedroom in a good neighborhood.
Interesting.
That's not far from like a metro station. And feel good about it and like be able to still have money left over to furnish the entire place.
Yeah, right. We still have the worst couch ever, and we've been together for 4 years. And how long have you had that couch for?
A long time.
We're getting a sectional next month.
Oh, big move.
Listen,
Adult
you guys
thing.
gonna have a new couch party?
Yeah,
That's an adult thing.
That's gonna ruin the couch. Is that a thing? Do people have new couch parties?
No, that was kind of like there was something Kyle Kinane mentioned in his on one of his specials. I think it was I like this old stuff better is his special that it's on.
Nice.
He does this whole bit about how like when you're older it's just like, oh, new couch. Let's have
exciting.
a party, you know?
The sectional is a great party couch because you can have some people across the room, but they're still sitting.
Oh yeah, yeah.
you know,
You're on
like-
the same thing, but you can see each other.
Yeah.
I would like to draw the panel's attention to the fact that this is not a normal scenario. We also had to build a podcast studio in our apartment.
Yeah.
We also like always buying camera gear and.
Oh yeah, we
Well, I mean,
prioritize like traveling over furniture.
So once upon a time, it was like we needed a new TV, we needed a new couch, we needed a new video game system. I didn't realize that was going to come to the top of the list. I just bought a new Xbox One S for the lady.
Okay.
That's fuck a couch, right?
Yeah.
Well, it died. The old Xbox 360 died, so it was time to swap in.
I had that moment too. My PS3 died on me, and I had to go pick up another.
I'm not even a huge gamer, but for like the $300 it costs to get an Xbox One, it's the kind of thing we can
I
play
used
once
it
in a
for
while.
Netflix. I used
Yeah.
it to just chill at the end of a long night. If you need to turn off your head, like a good
100%.
I had Skate 3 on PS3 back home, and that game is not great. But what's fun is that you can just skate around indefinitely and not interact with the actual
I
game.
like those games.
Yeah.
It was just fun. You'd like try every now and then. You'd try to do a trick, and it'd be like real physics, and so it would suck. Like you wouldn't be able to do much.
So you would just like hang out. You're
I
like
would
skipping
hang out.
school in the video game. Just
Oh
like
yeah. I'm just like listening to a podcast while I'm like skating around like a university campus where
Totally.
other skaters are just riding by.
when I got the virtual reality headset with my new Samsung phone, my favorite game was fishing because you're
Oh,
just sitting on a dock and it's just like so peaceful and I'm just fishing and Jess would come home
that was
from
so
like whatever she's doing and I'm just sitting there on the couch just fishing.
And have you ever watched somebody VR with the headset?
Oh,
it's
it's
so
nuts.
funny.
It's
like
nuts.
it's just like it's the best.
So yeah, I can relate. I really enjoyed
Exactly.
the relaxing and I beat the game. I beat the game in the first 3 days and I just
what, you catch a bass or something?
well no, you just have to get like all 300 of their fake imaginary fish that they made. or
Oh,
whatever.
it's like imaginary fish.
Well, there's real fish, and then they go to like there's like a biker fish with a mustache.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
fun.
yeah.
Okay, you know what? I get it.
But here's the thing though, I caught all the fish, and then I just kept fishing.
Yeah.
And I don't even like to fish. That's the
I don't
weird
like
thing.
fishing either.
I don't
Yeah.
like to fish, but
There's something
if I can just
calming
put
about it.
a pair of like goggles on and I'm suddenly just fishing,
Yeah.
then I'm in for a half hour
Well,
fishing.
it's like me in sports. Like I won't seek it out to watch it on TV unless I'm in a group of people.
That's like me.
Or if I get tickets to a game, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna be the most into it.
yeah.
Like I went to. I
So
went
you go
to,
for the experience, not
Oh,
because
yeah.
you're a diehard sports fan. Or
I
something.
went to a Blue Jays game not too long ago, and it was like one of the best days of my life. Like they lost miserably. It was bad. But like the game is so much more tense when you're there. It doesn't feel like you're wasting time or like it's going on forever like it would on TV. Like you're there, you're immersed. It's a great experience. Like I get it now.
I was the same way with.
So send me
went to-
more tickets.
Was it more? Do you get tickets sent to
I
you
got
already?
tickets. No, I mean no, but
Fans just be tweeting you tickets.
oh, fans? Woo! I don't know about fans. No. That was my folks came to visit and they were like, "What should we do?" And I was like, "I don't know. Blue Jays are playing."
Well, your parents are fans of you, I imagine.
No. They're bigger fans of me going to law school. If that's
I was
an
about to say,
alternate
what were you
universe.
like as a kid? Like, were your parents surprised when you got into comedy, or were they like, "Oh yeah, that makes sense"?
No, they weren't surprised that I got into comedy. They were surprised that I was stupid enough to continue it. Like, I think they had higher hopes in terms of like I was a smart kid. I was like. I was like, they would always be like, oh, he's gonna be a politician. Oh, but what's the difference between being a comedian and a politician is that like it's lower stakes and I don't have to lie about anything.
Yeah.
And also I'm gonna be broke. But those are the main differences. So like in a way, sure. You know, and then they were like, you argue a lot, you should be a lawyer. And I was like, maybe I'll play a lawyer on a show someday.
Yeah.
They do shoot
you would
suits.
You would play a great
cast me
lawyer.
in Suits.
Yeah.
The final season.
Listen, as somebody who's watched 8 seasons of The Good Wife / The Good
shit.
Fight,
Okay,
you would play a great lawyer.
Buddy, let me tell you something. I'd be one of those Raz lawyers. I'd be one of those guys who has like a quip in his pocket but knows what he's doing. You know what I mean? But on Suits, I'd be a bumbling idiot.
You'd be
because
that lawyer who like
beautiful type.
skirts just outside the law but knows it, but then like squeaks back in just in time before the judge like pays attention. You're like that guy.
Yeah. I'm playing tricks in the courtroom.
Yeah.
On that show, but on Suits, I'm the bumbling idiot.
Okay, sure.
I'm like the new guy.
Yeah, but you know what? That's how you get. That's how you go from 2 lines to like a regular character because you test well with the audience with those 2 bumbly lines. Like I totally picture you just knock something over in the one episode, but 2 seasons later, you're like their private investigator on the team.
Yeah. They're like, I know just the guy. It's like,
I know just the guy.
Not him again. Not like,
Mike.
Look, I promise he's gotten better. And then it's like me, and it's like, ignore the mustard stain. And it's like, how? It's
You
like,
always
honestly,
just barely get the job done.
This mustard stain, not because I ate something with mustard. This was just a freak accident. Somebody next to me on the train had mustard. Where are we? You know,
Fill me in. I'm already coming in late on this case.
Here. Look, no more bullshit. Let's get to business.
I feel like we skipped an important piece of DNA in this podcast, and it's how we met Mike. It's I would love to talk about how we met Mike. I'd love to talk about like what it is you do that even we're so excited to have you here right now because Jess and I are huge comedy fans. Like that's something we've already talked about on the podcast.
And that is so nice. By the way, anybody who's a comedy fan, you don't have to, but thank you so much. It's like the best feeling in the world.
Well, we could talk all day about comedy and why it's awesome, but Jess and I are big fans.
Nice.
Whenever we travel, we try to pop into comedy clubs. We spend way too much time at the Comedy Store trying to see our favorite comics in when we're in LA. And we go to the Comedy Bar constantly here in Toronto. We watch any stand-up comedy that becomes available to us, you know, as it comes out. We're just like waiting for the next thing. So that's us. So, and we've spoken quite a bit on this podcast about going to the Comedy Bar and why we think it's cool and being a part of kind of the local comedy scene in that way of consistently going out to a spot like that. And you're one of the comics we saw there when we went and started kind of deciding we wanted to make it a habitual thing that we did.
Yeah.
And every night there's always 2 or 3 comics that you go, I connect with their material.
Yeah.
Or they had a good night because you always don't know.
Yeah, there's a lot of great comics in this city.
Totally.
Like there's so many. That's why we're all here is because we're constantly being challenged by each other to be better.
Yeah. And there's great hubs like the Comedy Bar, right?
Exactly. Comedy Bar is an amazing place to be. It's like what they're doing there for comedy as in general is just it's something that the world should be paying attention to, but it's Canada, so everybody's
Can
like,
you tell us what do they do differently that I'm not seeing? And I have no issue with Absolute. I have no issue with the other places. In fact, we've seen great shows at some of the other spots. But the energy at Comedy Bar is way more to our liking. Mm-hmm. As people who kind of came up as fans of the Comedy Store energy, what is it that the Comedy Bar does differently that you say people should be paying attention to it?
I'd say Yuck Yucks and Absolute do a great job at commodifying comedy, but they don't necessarily keep up with the times in comedy.
Okay.
Comedy Bar does a great job of handing it off to producers, local guys, local people who put together shows based on their experience in the city and make an effort of essentially having a diverse showing and representation of many different kinds of comics without it being like, oh, this is what that's about. It's just kind of like, this is where comedy's at today, and this is where I want comedy to go. This is how it's supposed to go, and we're just following that naturally. Whereas, for example, Yuck Yucks will have, they do employ comics who are not great. They do employ comics who
do they have a seniority thing there where it's just like, oh, this guy's been around for so long, we're gonna keep giving him spots over the new guy? Or
to be honest, it's like the boys club that you hear in comedy, that's the kind of thing it is there. And then you're on top of it, it's like the contract that they make you sign is very
I've heard about the
counterintuitive
contract.
Yeah, but the thing is, they're like one of the only sources in Canada that allow comedians to actually work. So it's just like, it's a double-edged sword. It's a catch-22. Like, you're signing your right to develop away, so you can make a couple $100 every once in a while.
And to be honest, so when I first heard about their policy, I heard about it from Joe Rogan.
Can you explain it?
So, and let me tell you what I know about it, and you tell me if I'm even close to accurate.
I mean, I frankly know probably just as little.
Okay. So I've heard that if you're a comic touring in Canada, Yuck Yucks will give you, it's essentially an all or nothing agreement. You only play Yuck Yucks clubs, and they'll put you in the rotation amongst other comics who do that. But you're not allowed to play anywhere else but Yuck Yucks clubs, correct?
So you can't play other clubs if there's a Yuck Yucks
in the vicinity,
within a certain radius. So
sure.
For example,
so that would cover Barrie, Toronto, and like the immediate area.
The immediate area. If there's a Yuck Yucks in there, but you're going to go do a club, that's a no. But they recently, I don't know how recent it was, lifted the ban for like quote unquote coffee houses and like alternative venues. The thing is, they consider places like the Comedy Underground and, oddly enough, Comedy Bar to be a coffee house, which is stupid. It's absolutely stupid. But part of me is glad that they do that, because then you have people like amazing comics who are signed to Yucks,
who can come through,
who can actually still work the good spots in town.
And that's why that annoys me, because as a comedy fan, I don't have a dog in the fight politically.
I'm sorry, you do have a dog.
Yeah, I do. She's lovely.
An adorable dog who's like right under me right now. It's amazing.
But it grosses me out a little bit to think, there's a guy or a team of guys or women in a position of somewhat, let's call it power in Canadian comedy, and they've decided the right move is to draw a line right through the middle of the business.
Let's create a divide.
And I'm not mad at any comic who signs it. I get it. Yeah. But I am mad at the guy who decided that's the correct move forward.
It's this or nothing.
Because I can't imagine in any business. Same thing with Comedy Central. When you hear comics say, Ari Shaffir talks about working with Comedy Central, and when he worked with Netflix, they penalized him by removing him from his own show and so on and so forth. But it's just that all or nothing mentality is bullshit, and fans do not fuck with it. Immediately, I have a bad taste in my mouth about Comedy Central now, too. I'm just like, I fuck with Ari Shaffir. I really like his style of comedy. I like what he brings to things. And for you to penalize a person for working with multiple players in the game, that tells me you don't like growth. That tells me you don't like openness. That tells me you don't like... you know what I mean?
For that one, I think that might also just be Ari being sulking a little bit.
Ari sulks.
Yeah, and Ari's kind of crazy, too.
But I'm just saying, you hear stories about... Comedy Central basically trying to defend against Netflix by saying you can't work with them or else.
Well, I think that doesn't quite happen unless that there's an agreement before. Like,
sure.
I mean, I don't think. Like, for example, Kyle Kinane just did second time he's come up. Kyle Kinane just did stand-ups episode on Netflix, but he's the voice of Comedy Central. Right, so he's their guy.
Well, it depends what contracts you negotiate and what position of power you're going into it. Because Bill Burr's already a Netflix guy, but I'm sure Comedy Central would gladly take Bill Burr as part of some series they're developing.
Oh, of course. I mean, there's and Bill Burr also has his show on Netflix. Like, there's a whole thing there. But what I'm seeing more of is it happens less in these networks because that's just a game. Hot commodities are going to be sought after.
100%.
If you're signing a contract that says it's an exclusivity contract, they better make it worth it. The thing is, Yuck Yucks doesn't quite make it worth it.
They don't make it worth it,
You're
which is even
one
worse.
of
That's a good point. Yeah.
a couple hundred comics who across the country, which is as big as it is, we don't have a city every couple miles. Like, we don't have a couple cities every now and then. It's very few clubs. They shut down a bunch of clubs. Yeah. So out of the year, they only work you a handful of times, and that's not enough to sustain you as a living, breathing human being who has to be in a city that's very expensive. And then they say, you know what? let's cut off your right hand too. You're not allowed to like work on stuff unless you're at our club. And by the way, for the next 3 weeks, we're full up on open mics. And it's like, what are you doing to us? It's like it shows hiring somebody to play guitar in your band
and say you can't practice.
You're not allowed to practice. No practicing. If you're gonna practice, you better do it at shows we are putting on.
In front of paying audiences?
Exactly.
Doesn't make a ton of sense.
And the thing is, normally you do work on stuff in front of audiences. Paying audiences, like...
But the Monday night open mic audiences, especially when you're playing run-of-the-mill tiny places, they come in knowing you're workshopping.
Exactly. Or like some shows are billed as workshop shows, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot happening where there's this understanding that coffee houses and stuff are fine. And that's new. But at the same time, the idea that they should restrict their roster to them is kind of nuts. In that we should just be independent contractors who get paid for the work we do on stage, and that's it.
100%. And the point I was trying to make, and even if it is slightly off about Comedy Central, is in general, anytime a position of power, a gatekeeper tries to approach things with, let's put up walls and funnel the talent only through us, it hurts the business, it hurts the fan. It only helps the 6 people on the board of that one company.
Yes.
And it only really helps them temporarily. You know what I mean?
And long term, one might argue that you create a role for yourself in the industry that you're the bad guy.
Yeah. It doesn't.
That's not a great long-term plan to have every young underdog think like, I mean, I only work with them if I really have to. That's the complete wrong energy to have in an industry that's as grassroots as comedy is.
Yeah.
Where comedians talk every day, all day.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Oh, I only know half this stuff because of comics talking about it. Like, you know, there's only so many public articles or experiences that were... Yeah, I mean, now I mean... You can look up Christina Walkinshaw's experience with Yuck Yucks and find a blog full of stuff that was picked up and, you know, run in the news. But you can also find Mark DeBonis's account of it. Like, you can find a bunch of different people talking about this. Maria Bamford came after Yuck Yucks a while back. Like, it's just not a normal way to go about it. Absolute does the same thing, but there, to a lesser extent, there's not many Absolute clubs, so
it's easier to get around
with like being at other clubs. They just basically say you can't perform at Yuck Yucks, which is fair because it's a competition in that way. If they were to say you just can't perform at Absolute, I see where you're coming from, but guarantee me some spots. You know what I mean?
Totally.
We're just really big fans, and the more we get into it, even from the fan perspective, I understand that it's hard to make money at a craft where there are 200, young people in a city vying for those spots. The ecosystem isn't set up for them to pay you a ton of money for those limited spots. And so I think it's important then that if we know that, similar to music for me, when I'm talking to the young rappers in Toronto, there's 200 of them applying for one opening spot on my California tour. Yeah. And so it's important that I don't then also basically try to squeeze them for every bit of juice there. You can never tour with anybody else but me if I pick. Like that's already that things are in my favor. I already have too many applicants. I don't need to then squeeze them for everything that they're worth. You know what I mean? And I think that difference is why I sleep at night when I do offer opportunities and I deal with somebody where there's a mic that's open, for example. And why I judge so harshly if somebody gets into that position and they say, I'm going to mess with your entire living and ability to grow your art form so that I keep my percentage of the pie. And to me, that's anti-comedy. And I'm very jaded from hip hop, man. I'm an old man now, and I spent 15 years running around gatekeepers. You know what I mean? And so
music's not so dissimilar.
It's very similar, especially hip hop, because hip hop's you practice at home, you get good in your head and on your cell phone these days, and then you try it out at a show and nobody's at it, and then you build up to a show where if your friends are at them, and then you eventually build up to a show where the people have expectations that you're going to entertain them. It's very similar in that way, and I think that's why coming from the world that we're so familiar in, we really relate to watching comedians, and like you love going to open mics and people watching and
totally.
Yeah, it's a whole different vibe when you're at a book show versus a mic or a workshop show where people are just like laid back trying some stuff or like you've been to a bunch of different kinds of shows. Like I mean, I think, did you come to Slam Dunk, the one where I did like a longer set?
No, not yet.
Okay.
I think I was in Montreal, your hometown.
Oh, that's right, you were
that particular
yeah,
week.
Yeah. Shooting a music video, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Right on. So I mean, those shows, like the energy is different. You bring out older material that's done, stuff that you don't want to, that you're not working on. Something that it's like, it's like when you're gonna be, it's basically like if you're a chef and you're cooking on a line versus like you're cooking at home trying to like come up with something.
Totally.
Right. So
yeah, these are paying customers who came out for a feast of a lifetime.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, sometimes it's like paying customers that are coming out to see what you're experimenting with.
Sure.
Like, to see if that is worthy of becoming like a main dish at your restaurant, right? So it's like, it's kind of fun to see both sides of things. Like I've been doing stand up for a while now, and
How long have you been doing it for?
2011, and it's 7 years now. 7
Great.
years. So, but I've been watching stand up and involved in comedy for a very, very long time, and I used to play music, but like would always do like bits in between songs, and that was always my favorite part instead of like playing the music. So I was like, all right.
What kind of music did you play?
It started off as like punk bands, like post-hardcore bands, and then it ended up being acoustic folk songs, because being in a band is 5 different schedules.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So it's like,
that's tough.
It's a nightmare to coordinate.
Just to finish up my thought and totally take it from there, I feel like the missing part of the story that I wanted to get out that was really cool was we came and saw your show. So we came. No,
This happens always.
Yeah, no, but that's
what our podcast is.
That's
we
the
should just
beauty
call
of
it like the
podcasting.
detour or
Yeah.
something, because that's what it is.
That's what podcasting's about, baby.
I mean, it's a conversation. That's what it is. It's conversations with microphones and
That's
people
it.
watching,
Yeah.
So we go to the comedy bar. We see your set.
Must have been an after-hours show.
Yeah, we love the after-hour shows.
Great show. Shout out to Ian Atlas at Empire Comedy.
Is that who runs that or not?
Yeah. He runs
great.
all the Empire Comedy shows.
Cool.
Yeah.
Hey, there, I'm learning more about the behind the scenes as we go here.
Oh, yeah. Well, he just had James Adomian in this weekend, and is having Doug Benson's Doug Loves Movies in.
I love me some Doug Benson.
And you got Sam J and a bunch of really cool people coming through soon. So
we see you as part of there's like 6 or 8 comics that night.
Yeah.
And it was a good night where there was a couple acts we liked, but there was something about your set. It was silly and well written. I think those are the two things that I respond to.
Thanks,
I
man.
like silly energy, and I feel like I can tell when a comic's just winging it with notions versus really you knew what was funny about each of the things that you were doing.
And also,
Thanks, man.
to me, it was also a very different format than
So
what
different,
a
yeah.
lot of the other acts had, which isn't
you.
even necessarily bad, but there's a little bit more of like a da 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 da, and we kind of know what we're about to hear from that style of comedy. And then when you went up, we were like, oh, this is completely different.
Thank you.
So different.
that's exactly what I want.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And the other thing I remember about that night, so I remember leaving and telling you we loved your set. I gave you like a dap
Yeah,
or
you guys
whatever.
are really nice.
And then you gave me, you were like, whatever, add me on Twitter. And then we left, and I was like, I'm going to add him on Twitter. And I went home that night, and it's like 2 a.m, and I'm trying to find you, and
You're probably spelling the last name wrong.
I can't find you.
You know what I forgot about that night is that I was added on last minute.
They didn't
I wasn't
tag
on the
you in
Oh
any
yeah,
website.
that's right, because we checked
So,
it. Yeah.
So I realized that later. I was like, oh, I told them to find me online, and there's no way to do that.
So what's funny then is then a week later, I start thinking, for whatever reason, it pops in my head, and I think, I'm gonna find that comedian. He was fucking good. And so I go check that week's Friday night lineup or whatever to see, because maybe you're on it, because we've noticed there's a little bit of you see some of the same guys and girls come through, and you weren't on it. I check again, and at a certain point,
I remember what happened actually.
yeah, because then we went to which was
You
it
went to the Comedy
Underground?
Underground.
Yeah.
And we found your business cards.
That's right.
And we're waiting for our Uber ride, and I'm flipping through them, and I said, Jess, this is that fucking guy.
And I was like, that is that guy.
This is that fucking guy I've been trying to find on Twitter for
What do you
3
call
weeks.
that? Kismet? Is that what the word
Kismet,
kismet means?
serendipity.
Serendipity? Yeah, something like that.
So I tweeted you, and that's just like a thing I do in my life is I find people I'm like a fan of, and then I tweet them
Yeah.
and try to become friends with those people.
Yeah,
so now
buddy.
you're here at our fucking podcast studio, and that's really dope.
I'm like, I was thrilled when you posted. I was like, no shit, this is like brightened my night. You know what I mean? I was on a show across the city. Just done a set. It was okay. It wasn't great. It wasn't bad. It was just kind of like, sure, this happened. And then you tweeted at me like, hey, we've been looking for you. I was like, all right, cool. That's nice.
I remember the thing that I remember is like a few days after or whatever, because you kind of forget what happens so often with those nights is 2 days later, you forget about your favorite comic from Saturday night. You're not thinking about like Ray's joke about diners.
If you didn't put in the work to find them and watch more stuff or whatever.
2 days later. And at one point, one of us referenced your dad joke and without even butchering it out here. One of us just referenced it.
Nice.
And then we both like busted out laughing and then talked about how funny that joke was or whatever. And then I was just like, it's funny that like, it really stuck with us.
I'm glad, man.
You know what I mean? For a couple of days. And it was because it was so... What stuck with us about that joke, and what you already said sort of about your set and your style, is it was unexpected. It's like, it's the part about it that was unexpected that makes me remember it. Because I didn't see the punchline coming, even when I thought I did see the punchline coming.
That's always fun about that bit, is that it's also my opening bit. So it's like, it's off kilter. It's weird. It's like, even if I'm going to do... Because I think you've seen me do a couple of my things, but not everything. And sometimes I have to do...
I've only seen probably 7 minutes of your material.
Yeah. Oh, no, you know what? You might have seen... You came to twice. You saw me twice. And I think you saw one set, which is the Polished 5. And then you saw another set where I did repeat some material.
And you riffed a bunch. That's the other thing that I remember about you.
Thing?
The second set, you riffed about Suits for a good like half of your set. And I remember thinking, knowing it was so riffing and that it was really funny for...
I spent a lot of time thinking about it. It's
just like musing what was funny about Suits, and then...
Well, honestly, it's like I've been describing, like, people will be like, oh, you like Suits? And I'm like, yeah, it's... puzzles, man. Like, it's just...
So it comes up from all the different conversations you have. Because this is a great segue to maybe to talking about your joke writing.
Oh, well, not necessarily, like, comes from conversations, but, like, sometimes it does. It's just something that, you know, after a while, if I say it enough times and it's funny to me, I'll find something, you know? But, yeah, a lot of stuff just comes up from being dumb and thinking something... Like, I'll give you an example of something. Last night, I did a show called Time Machete at Comedy Bar, which is one of the wildest shows I've ever done. Like, the whole thing is like, you're not brought on by a host. The show kind of just starts. There's a light of a different color. It's a spotlight. It's a tight spotlight. You have to stay within it. The room, it's pitch black. There's sounds of birds chirping in the background the entire set. You're brought on to like chiptune music or like some music that somebody made on a phone or tablet. And you're just like, you're in pitch black. You have to find your way to the middle of the stage, just wait for the song to end. And then the lights come on and it's like you, and then you just go. And the audience is prepped because they know this show, or like the show is billed as like the most experimental comedy you'll see. And so people, even like classic joke writers, like last night, Hodo Hersey was on the show, and she is one of the better joke writers in town. Like, she's amazing. She's so funny.
What's her name again?
Hodo Hersey, Hoodo, Hersey, Hersi.
Cool. Yep.
She's very funny. Like one of the sharpest comics. I think she's gonna get homegrown this year at Just for Laughs. I also think Nick Nemiroff and Hisham Kaladi are gonna get there. A lot of really strong showings this year, but Hodo's like at the top of my list. And even she was just like, I'm gonna fuck around up there and do something different. And she doesn't normally do any like meta jokes or like self-referential, like this is a show jokes. But last night she did. She got into it, right? For me, it's like shows like that tend to make me think, oh, this is safe for me to unravel like the stuff that I think is too weird for regular shows.
When you go weird, does it allow you to be slightly weird at regular shows? Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Like you go super weird at a show like that, and the next time you're doing a regular show, you're kind of comfortable taking a step in that direction.
So it depends on the show. So like when I started, I told myself, because I used to make a big divide between like, oh, this is my weirder stuff and this is more safe stuff, and I would only do safe stuff at clubs. I would only be like, okay, they want the safe stuff, we're gonna give them the safe stuff. And I thought, I don't like the safe stuff. This is like it's a necessary spin. Like, I need, out of necessity, I need to have the safe stuff. But then I thought, like, no, the weird stuff is funny. I'm gonna focus on that, and then because of that, I've started writing just weird stuff, and now the weird stuff has become my safe stuff, my good stuff. And if that doesn't
really
fly,
cool.
I still have like a back pocket of like, oh, here we go, you guys want to joke about sexting, or okay, here's an experience, here's a story I don't do.
I was looking on your website and I saw that you had a podcast before.
Oh right, I did.
Yeah, I listened to a little bit of it.
Which one?
We listened to the first and the last one.
Okay, so
So like the intro and then the last episode. Like
Did you listen to That Was Us or the mic drop?
the mic drop?
Okay, the mic drop is, I'm trying to bring it back, but I have no way to do it properly.
Can we
Yeah.
tell you how much we enjoyed your segment titles?
Yeah. So I wanna read one.
You're set. And at one point, Jessica was playing you in here, and I'm in the other room, and like 20 minutes has passed, and I'm like, Jess, is he still listing segment ideas?
Yep.
And she's like, yeah, he's
Yeah, the teaser thing. Yeah.
he's still listing ideas for future podcast segments.
Yeah, it's a multi-format podcast idea, and
I really like it.
by the time I started it, I didn't have access to where we were recording.
Sure.
That Was Us, which is where I would double dip to just record the mic drop, and then I was just like, well, I'll bring this back eventually, and now it just sits on my website as like a reminder that I have another thing to do.
You punching up non-comedy movies is hilarious.
Yeah,
You
I miss that.
interviewing the least interested member of the audience is hilarious.
I want that so bad, but every time I've asked, they've said no.
It's
Really, I was gonna say because I didn't get to hear that on the podcast. Did that ever
there.
happen? Yeah.
I've asked, and they've been like, no. Like I,
You know what you do?
Bothered them.
As your career progresses and budget frees up, it opens that idea up, because especially as you're moving forward and you have more and more and more fans, it would be hilarious if like once a month there's like a video that comes out with you interviewing like the one guy in the audience who didn't get it. That would
You
be
talk to me after the show, and then it's like, why don't you like me?
yeah, that's hilarious.
That's the whole deal.
Yeah, so A+ on the segment ideas. We love it. I love it.
I think my favorite one out of them, Punch Up was supposed to be a podcast on its own. It used to be called Criminal Minds Punch Up, and I even had like a theme song, like a dubstep theme song based on the. Based on the Criminal Minds theme song. So it was like, you know how Criminal Minds, the theme song, I don't know if you guys watch.
I watch.
But like the theme song is like bum 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 bum, and I was like, this is a great intro for like a dubstep version where it'd be like, it's time for Punch Up, and then it would just hit, and then we'd be like, welcome to Punch Up, the show where we unknowingly punch up Criminal Minds again. We didn't know, but we have it all archived, and then we just play an old episode, but it's really that week's episode, and we pretend we had no idea Criminal Minds was going to be a drama. I really like that one, but now if we do it for anything, it's just anything.
Do you still do it, or it's just a thing that you're going to come back and do eventually?
It's something that I'm looking to do eventually. I really want it to be Criminal Minds. I really, really want it to be
but
just
Criminal Minds is going to end.
That's perfect, because they have 14 seasons already.
That's true.
And
Take a while to
I don't think I could get through all those episodes. It was originally supposed to be, I mean, we'll see if this happens, but I'm supposed to do a festival in September in Boise, Idaho, and Deb DiGiovanni, who's a Toronto comic, one of the best comics out there, just put out an album called Lady Jazz. Listen to it.
I shall.
She's amazing. We both text each other about Criminal Minds whenever we're watching. And we're supposed to be at this festival together, and I'm trying to convince the festival to let us have a show where we screen 2 episodes and talk over them. And I think that would be a huge dream come true. Like, just to be able to do that for real. Yeah, I'm really hoping we can pull it off.
I like it. As your future marketing strategist, the only thing I'll say is if you make the podcast just about Criminal Minds, it's a limited runway. Mm-hmm. What you do is you make the first season about Criminal Minds. And that way,
I agree.
Depending on how that goes, you could be like, you do something else, and then by popular demand, season 3, we're doing more fucking Criminal Minds again. But it's still that way you're open to doing other things. So
I mean, it's on the website. It's listed as Punch Up, but no, in my heart, it's Criminal Minds Punch Up.
When I listen to it, when it comes back and I listen to it, I'll know that whenever it's a Criminal Minds episode, I'll know that you're doubly happy.
That's my most excited part.
I really like watching bad TV shows like Criminal Minds, and in my mind, whenever they do something so painful, like big like outro like quotes, and then they like walk out the door or something.
Yeah.
I judge so harshly, but yet I keep going back to that. Counting for more.
I mean, I don't go for again. It's like Suits. It's pretty
Suits is famous for that.
Solving puzzles.
Big outro quote.
And then the music cue from like whatever indie band that they discovered.
Listen, let me tell you, as one of those indie bands, we appreciate those placements. Shout out to Kim's Convenience. Had 4 songs placed on the legendary Kim's Convenience.
Okay.
Listen.
All right.
No Criminal Minds yet, but
no Criminal Minds. Well, let's. Hey, Suits. What's the deal? Get over here.
Suits filmed in Toronto.
There's room for Oklahoma on there.
So here's a question: are you a Suits fan?
I am. Yeah.
Does the princess leave the show?
Right? How? I don't know. I think it's their last season, so I think.
Oh, is it okay? So she just rides it out.
I think she's gonna be doing the last season, and then.
Is there anybody who got more famous faster than her?
That's kind of the peak.
She's on like everyone's favorite TV show to make fun of, which. It's dope, but people do roast it for being like that.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
it's like
primetime soap opera vibe. You know,
yeah, and which is exactly what I'm buying into. Sign me up. You know,
and now she's the fucking princess.
She's a princess. It's crazy.
It's hilarious.
It's amazing because it's like here she is. She's like this amazing actor. She is like an activist. She's super smart. She's super pretty. She's on this show. She's basically starts out as like the pretty girl in the office.
Yeah.
And then they give her this great character. She gets a little bit more say in the show, takes it in an amazing direction. And then it's like, all right, guys, I want to go marry the prince. And they're like, okay, sure.
What present does she give the girl who cast her in that show? And I'm assuming it's a girl because all the great casting people I've ever met have been women. But you know what I mean? Like the person who cast her in that role changed your life even more than they thought they were.
Like, let me ask you this: Do you think Prince Harry was watching Suits?
For sure. Every one of us in our age group fell in love with her at some point.
Oh, there's no way not
because
to.
She's beautiful and really genuine. She's got those eyes that were just like, you know what I mean? And so. No, I'm sure he met her in real life too. I'm sure he wasn't just like.
Oh no, he probably was like, send her my number, and then she got a text from someone who was like, hey, by the way, this is Prince Harry's number, and she was like, yeah, right, like this is really the prince's number, and then they were like, with permission, I'll give the prince his number, and he'll FaceTime you, and she was like, oh sure, I gotta see where this goes.
Do you know what I love? You're playing it out like it's a Suits episode.
Yeah.
It's the exact same level of writing.
Look, man,
as a
I've
Suits
watched
episode.
too much of that show, so
is there a public record of how they met?
I have no idea.
Because the British people love to talk about celebrity gossip.
I'm sure that there is, because I know how the other two met.
Because there's got to be.
Yeah.
I'm genuinely curious.
Like you said, there's no way people would let that slide without knowing.
Of course.
There's at least an official story. I don't know if it's the true story.
They're obsessed with the royals. They have it somewhere.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But again.
We just didn't do our research. Welcome to Damaged Goods, where we don't do our research.
I mean, look, we can pull out our phones, but why would we? You know? Again, this is also huge because, like, Meghan Markle's biracial. This is a black person in, like, royalty.
I sort of feel like it doesn't count.
I mean,
because you're right, and I'm not taking anything away from black people. I have some black friends from the UK who are really excited about it.
Yeah.
But she, doesn't look black enough to upset a racist old British man. She just doesn't. She doesn't look like the person that would upset them.
Okay.
And she's so beautiful that just breaks the rules. And so all I'm saying is I don't think it's as telling as if he had met and married like a black woman.
Okay.
She doesn't look like a black woman.
I mean,
so you're just not giving it as much credit of like being groundbreaking.
That's all I'm
for
saying.
Racism.
No, and I'm excited, and I think it's a great foot in the door that there's a biracial woman who's now royalty. I just think it's big to say like, oh look, there's no racism. She doesn't look black. It's of course the racists aren't saying anything. Mm-hmm. To them, they can ignore the white-looking black lady in the castle.
Right.
Does that make sense? You know what I mean?
I see that, but then that's also another facet of racism where it's like white passing and quote unquote not counting. It's all like another element. This is another discussion altogether.
Totally. All I'm saying is I'm not giving too much credit.
No.
Yeah. You're not saying that she doesn't
She's like
count
the whitest
as a
looking
black
black
woman.
lady ever. No.
You're just saying it doesn't take away the racism. Yeah.
I mean, it's not going to end racism. It's just like
Racism
cool.
over.
I felt like you were trying to say that Meghan Markle was the solution to all racism, and I felt like, you know what? On behalf of people who have been wronged by racism, I need to put my foot down on that one.
As I get Anthony to pour my third drink, that's a good segue to. So we offered you a drink on the way, and you don't drink at all.
No, I don't drink. I never liked the taste. I never liked the feeling. It's just not for me. I never liked drinking. My grandfather's an alcoholic who might have influenced that decision because I heard stories about him. Mm-hmm. But honestly, it came down to the fact that I'll take a sip of a drink and be like, this is unpleasant. It's not for me.
So not beer, not wine.
No, on the rare occasion I'll take a sip of a beer and think that's a beer I can drink. But
it's
most
cold,
beers
I guess.
No. Yeah, it's cold or it's just like a really smooth one. But it's like, I don't understand people who I love me a good Guinness. It's like, oh, you like feeling like you're about to choke on something. It's disgusting to me. And wine is the same. I never liked it. My other grandfather is huge on wine. He'll pour it in his cereal if he wants to. That's just my that's no, you know. It's that's what he loves. But for me, it was if I have a drink, I'm at a wedding. And I'm getting the tastiest, fruitiest drink on the menu. I'm having one or two, and then I'm done because I don't like being out of control. I don't like.
Have you ever been out of control? Have you ever been? Have you ever gotten
I've
drunk
been hammered.
And stuff? Oh, okay. I wasn't
hammered. Sure. Yeah. I mean, on my 18th birthday, my cousin's birthday is the day before mine, and his mother's birthday. His mother shares a birthday with me, so we would do family birthday at their house, and then at midnight we'd bring out cakes for me and my aunt. So on the night before my 18th birthday, my cousin Vinny made Grappa for me and was like, "That's your bottle, nobody else." And by midnight, I had finished a bottle this big, which is I don't know how to describe to an audience by listening. Measure your head from chin to top, and then that's about right. And then so I would left maybe
and sorry, what
of that.
Would you say it was Grappa?
Grappa.
What is that?
It's super concentrated spirit. It's basically, you know, I don't really know. It's high percentage alcohol.
Is it a liqueur?
No, I don't. It's a spirit. That much I know.
Yeah, because I know my uncle drinks Grappa as well. I'm also Italian, and my uncle drinks Grappa, and me and my brother would drink it, and
it's fucked.
It's one of those kinds of alcohols that tastes like you're drinking chemicals. Like gin. If you do a shot of gin, it tastes like somebody boiled rubber down, strained it a bunch or whatever.
Yep.
I love gin, but I would agree that a shot of gin is kind of weird.
And Grappa's like that. There's nobody on the planet who's like, a shot of Grappa tastes good. No.
Yeah. It's literally to be like, this is something we're doing to
It's
show
almost
that
like
we
to
celebrate.
prove we can drink it.
Well, that's what drinking is.
Well, no, because for example, I'm a big fan of Scotch and Coke, and it tastes like a spicy Coke, and it makes me feel good. And so I don't drink. I don't do shots. I cannot drink drinks that don't taste good. I just can't do it.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of like you, but I'm one step closer in that I found a few drinks that I do like, and I only drink those.
I found one drink that I like.
What do you like?
It's honestly the dumbest name I've ever heard of for a drink. It's called a broken down golf cart.
I've heard of it. What is it again?
So it's part amaretto, part cranberry juice, and part melon liqueur. So it's take your pick of whatever melon liqueur you like, cranberry juice and amaretto, and then you have a very sweet tasting. It's like somebody melted a watermelon Jolly Rancher and then put ice in it, and you're like, wow, this is pretty tight. I like this.
So so it's basically like a tasty drink that has a little bit of booze in it. Now, do you like the feeling of one drink where you get a little maybe warming, or no deal, you kind of don't fuck with any of it?
One drink I can fuck with, but it's mostly I remember in high school, when I was I'd be at a party and everybody's getting hammered, and I'd grab a beer and pretty much nurse it all night, and I'd take a sip. I'd be like, "This is gross. Like, why do we drink?"
Beer
and they'd
doesn't
be
taste
like,
good, no matter what anybody says.
But like they would like I was confiding in a friend. I was like, "Hey, why do we drink this stuff?" And they'd be like, "Yeah, so we can like talk to people, like so we can loosen up."
That was actually gonna be my next question. Like, how do you find like not drinking in the comedy scene goes? Like when it's like the really late nights, where everybody's kind of wasted. Do you get irritated with that? Or
no,
like...
I'm used to it at this point. Like I can hang. Like if all it takes is to act a little dumb, then I'll act a little dumb, and then I'll the joke I have is like I can party, but then I can drive home. You know what I mean?
Totally.
Like I can match the vibe of a room. It's just a matter of like whether or not I'm down with it, right?
Totally.
So if
I'm actually like really envious of that. Like I'm not an alcoholic, but it's just like I don't think I could see myself getting there where I can just hang out with drunk people all night and not also be at least a little bit
sometimes it can be
buzzed.
irritating, for sure.
But like and even like staying up late, like it's like once it's like like 1 or 2 o'clock. If I'm not drinking, I'm like, what am I doing? You know what I mean?
The people that I've known that have successfully lived like you normally never drank. They're always the creative types, and I'm not saying everybody in the world, but the people that I have met that have said similar things to what you just said. They're creative types who early on said, didn't like it when I was 16 or whatever, never got into it, and then like you, they develop a plan for when alcohol is everyone else's plan.
Yeah.
And it's not always maybe the way that you deal with it, but everybody has a survival thing. And it's funny, I think in a lot of cases, it does create the comedian when you're talking about those like, I'm really enjoying Pete Holmes' podcast right now. You know what I mean?
He made it weird.
Yeah, I love it. And I don't know that he doesn't drink ever, but I don't think he's a drinker. You know what I mean? And I think there's a lot of those
I'll
types.
have a white wine.
Sure. But I think there's a lot of those types where they don't get drunk. So they have fun with the drunk people. And they kind of have almost like a survival mechanism in place,
Yeah, it kind of did end up being that when I got a little older. I'm talking like I turned like 30, but I was like literally still in high school. But instead of being like 13 nursing a beer, I was just like 16 and making fun of or playing jokes on the drunk people around me with other drunk people. It's like, let's just say like when my friend was like, we drink this so we can talk to people or like to loosen up so we can ask out a girl. It's like, oh, that you need that. I'm good.
You're loose. You're already loose.
I already asked out my crush, got told no, and now I'm still dancing. What's the deal? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So to them, it's like, well, I can't do that, and I was like, I can't care. It's
totally.
Like, bring it on.
But it's good to know. I think there's a lot of power in being self-aware and being like aware that you don't need that. One thing for me is I smoke a lot of weed. I drink on every one of these podcasts, but I don't mess with hard drugs. And for me, it wasn't so much about I don't need it the way that other people need it, as I have a relative like fear of chemical drugs. And I'm already quite high. I'm manic and quite high energy and very intense. And when I met people who did drugs, they were quite manic and really intense, and I was like, I just don't know if you need to pour rocket fuel on a rocket fuel fire to make it even more explosive. And so really early, it was like emblazoned in my mind that me and hard drugs weren't going to mix. Like really young, I made like a decision, and so I think we all come to that for different reasons. But it's just interesting how we make those decisions on like where the line is, right?
Yeah.
Because for me, the joint's no problem, but I can't mess with cocaine, and especially in entertainment and probably in comedy, you see you see a fair bit of it. But for me, that's never been the thing.
I mean, I've never done any hard drugs. You know what? I did mushrooms once and I didn't quite like it, but I understand why people like them.
I love them.
The thing is, I think if I did coke or Adderall once, it'd be like, this is how I need to live my life. And I don't like that possibility. But also,
that's how I feel too, because I don't do any of that stuff either.
Right.
And I don't do it because I don't think I would. I don't not do it because I don't think that I would like it. It's like I would definitely like it. I just don't want it to become one of those things. Right?
Do you know what I like about this conversation? It's kind of cool that we're having somewhat of an anti-drug conversation, not from like a corny motivational place so much as like these are really these are very realistic reasons that we each of us choose not to do drugs. You know what I'm saying? Like in school they say like don't smoke crack because if you smoke crack once and then all you see is like jail doors closing.
Yeah, exactly.
that's not useful. But we're actually talking about like, hey, well, I think about that if I did it, I would really make the decision that that's probably what I should do all the time. And then I'm just like, I don't know. Really early, I thought I'm already ADD enough. I don't need to be doing cocaine. These are really like relatable
But also,
reasons.
if you told young kids that's just like, don't do coke because you'll really like it, I don't know if that's the best message to give them,
I'm not
because it's like they're
saying-
definitely just gonna do it.
we just revolutionized the DARE program. I'm just saying.
Maybe talking to college kids.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where it's like, we've got
College kids for sure.
Listen,
we
man,
got 5 years on them. Be like, hey, look.
Yeah.
I know it sounds fun to do coke and have sex with a stripper. I'm not saying it doesn't sound fun.
It sounds like something you can talk about for years, but eventually will come up in therapy as something of a catalyst, you know? Like,
Something of a catalyst. That's a man who's been to therapy.
I have been to therapy. Not anymore, but I would like to be. It's
Did you
nice.
graduate? They gave you a diploma?
No, I just kind of was like, well, can't do this anymore. It was I ran out of therapy sessions on that were covered on my insurance.
Yeah.
And then I was like, no,
You got a
thank
Groupon
you.
for 5 therapy sessions.
10.
10?
But yeah, no, I recommend it to anybody. It was like,
Jess missed her therapy
Amazing.
session this week.
I missed one. I have 10 as well, and I
Oh,
missed
no.
one, and
She
they
missed one.
they made me sign something that said if I miss it, it counts.
yeah, it does.
Damn.
Oh, but they're so good. It's so worth it. But coming back to Adderall, that's the limitless drug, right? Like that's what they intimate by.
Yeah, I think I would love Adderall.
Oh, same here. It's like
Yeah.
we're living in a fast-paced world where we're like, if you took into account everything it takes to be a healthy human being and achieve all your goals, and
Stakes are high right now.
yeah, stakes are huge,
Yeah.
colossal. It's
And
impossible.
I
right?
always have this like FOMO feeling where it's like I have so many ideas and I could be doing so much more. That's
Right.
always what I
Yes.
feel like.
Yes.
So it's like, oh, there's a drug that makes it so I can do so much more. Like that's amazing.
I've always wanted to sort through my iTunes library and get rid of stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean it's already done while I was doing exercises that I never thought I'd be doing and learning how to cook at the same time?
yeah.
That does sound like a better version of me.
It's like that's what I want from a drug.
Yeah, and that's my issue with drugs. Doesn't work for Adderall. I would agree with you. The only reason I've never done Adderall is out of fear that becomes my new baseline.
Yeah.
I have a few friends who argue that Adderall has very like little known bad side effects, but it must, right? Like it has to.
The thing is not knowing what what your brain chemistry is actually like, and then pouring that on, like putting that in part of it is like, it's like I would say. If someone might say that you are a little distracted, then it won't have the desired effect. If you're like, because it's meant to treat ADD and ADHD, so if you're like someone who's already hyperactive, or it's not going to have that same effect.
Yeah.
But then again, it hasn't been used recreationally enough.
Oh, so I've kind of done it then. So I've done a version of it, I think, because when I was in high school, I did Dexedrine all the time, which I think is like, yeah, it's like a like concentrated Ritalin essentially, which would be similar to Adderall.
Yes,
I'm
yeah.
guessing. So I've never done Adderall, but I'm guessing I would know from that it's kind of similar.
Interesting. I've never done.
Because I remember that people telling me that and be like, oh, if you have ADD already, it won't do much, but
Yeah.
if you don't, so I'm guessing I don't. It did because
I
it did a lot.
Yeah, I mean, like to think that there's a switch somewhere in there that just needs to be like hit by this one pill that will allow you to be the most productive, which is something we all want, but it also I don't know, it's just so scary.
Yeah,
I don't
for
like
sure.
it.
It's so different than other drugs, right? Because that
Yeah.
doesn't sound like a party drug. That sounds like a improve your brain.
Oh, if anything, it's the
Execution drug.
introvert's drug, right?
Yeah.
It's like the one that's like you shut yourself in a room, get everything done drug.
Do your taxes in advance drug.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is not a good idea, by the way.
It's actually a big waste of time, it turns out.
While we're talking about things we like, drugs we like, alcohols we like,
What are we
things we
talking
don't
about?
like, I have some thises or that's for you
Oh,
guys.
this or that? Okay, I like it.
So I'll give you a this or that, and you tell me what your this or that is. You can choose to explain your answer, or you can just leave it
Okay.
at that.
Okay. And are we going in an order of any sort, or are we just like blurt it out?
I think just blurt out your answer.
Okay.
Okay. So tent or cabin?
Cabin.
Yeah, cabin.
Yeah, I'm an indoors boy. I like.
I'm
things
cool
to be
with tent as
controlled.
like an experience once in a while. But if we pull up to a campsite and there's a cabin or a tent and someone goes, Illy, I say cabin.
Yeah.
We bought a tent. We only used it once.
Yeah, I know, and
We're big cabin
we'll use it
people.
again.
Yeah.
But
I mean, the thing about a tent is like for me, it's like max 2 nights.
yeah,
Cabin, I can be there for a while. You know what I mean?
totally.
Yeah, I think a cabin. I'm definitely more of an indoor cat anyway, and like while I enjoy being outdoors and like, you know, if I'm on a lake and there's like a fire and like everybody's hanging out, it's a good time. I'm not gonna fall asleep right then and there. You take me inside. Give me in
It's
something
true.
comfy.
That's true because when you're kind of done with the outdoorsy part of camping, like having the fire or whatever you're fucking playing frisbee, whatever you're doing,
Yeah.
then it's like, oh, now I have to go lay in an uncomfortable tent quietly,
yeah.
looking up at like material. Like you can't really
You're
hang
on
out in
uneven
there.
ground. You're like,
Yeah,
oh, okay.
It's not like you can bring a bunch of people and like continue the party in
Yeah,
the
yeah,
tent,
yeah.
really.
And then you're like doing that awkward dance to get the shoes off before getting in, and then you have no way to like get it on after, like without toppling things, or you have no way to like balance yourself.
And there's always like one mosquito in the tent.
oh yeah,
We're really
Trapped.
breaking new ground here. Cabins are better than tents.
Fuck you.
Yeah, we're killing it.
You
Hey,
don't
man.
approve of my first this or that question.
No, I approve of it. It's just funny to hear us like really
it?
go deep and like, listen, I don't know if you guys have considered all of the ways in which a built home is better than one that you just pitched up out of
Hey.
fabric.
Look, we gotta take this seriously.
It's a tents are made out of like the same material as like MC Hammer pants. It's not it's not meant to be lived in.
Next question.
Leave breeze though.
Cake or pie?
If anybody says pie,
Ice cream cake,
they had a troubled childhood. It's definitely
or they're
cake.
Americans. Americans love their pie, man.
That's true.
And you know what?
Like
I feel like the
song.
Americans I know would mess with cake still
Everybody fucks with cake, but I prefer ice cream cake.
over regular cake.
Yep, 100%. I'm an ice cream dude.
I'm a regular chocolate birthday cake guy.
Yeah.
And this is important to me. I like
Moist cake.
I like a layer of icing, the kind that you spread on a cake, not one of those like it's like 3 inches of like foam icing.
I like either one.
But I
the
prefer
sugar.
the like lather on cake than the like. Like I don't know if it makes that sound when they put that on, but you know it's like
Yeah.
Like
you
a fondant?
when you cut the cake where it's like this much bread and then there's like this much fucking icing.
So you prefer just like the moist, bready
yeah, like
inside.
Betty Crocker chocolate
yeah.
cake, birthday cake.
You do it well. Yeah.
Yeah.
The stuff that you can make at home, stuff that feels like somebody who loves you made it. I get it.
Do you think the Crocker family still like gets a lot of bread from?
Oh, hell yeah.
Like bread isn't money,
Like a lot of
you mean,
money.
right?
Yeah,
not like
yeah,
not like
Do you
actual
think-
bread.
Do you think the Crocker family still caking is what I'm asking. Anyways, continue.
And we're back. This is actually the beginning of the podcast.
That bad joke ended the podcast and sent us back in time.
So I'm guessing because of sexism, I know this answer, but
Wow.
bath or shower?
Okay, what are the circumstances?
And what are you asking?
Are
You
we
say-
saying
No, I mean like I did like your everyday decision. Bath
everyday
or shower.
decision is shower?
Yeah, because I take
'cause you
baths
have-
like 90% of the time.
Really?
Yeah,
Interesting.
but I think it is more of like a girl thing. Most guys I've always known ever more of like shower.
I
people.
like baths more. I have things to do.
yeah,
I think we like shave more, and shaving's really hard in
Sure.
the shower.
Yeah.
It's easier to do when you're just like laying down, you know?
Yeah, I just shave my face. So,
Yeah, I don't even do that.
are you like baby face
Baby face
all
baby.
the time?
Like this is about a week of nothing.
This is a week.
Yeah, see, I got nothing. I don't even have armpit hair. I got nothing.
Oh
Yeah.
wow.
I'm a little baby.
And you're Italian?
Yeah, right?
That's strange.
I know. It really is off-putting to women who want to be with me. so yeah. Anyway.
I want to take a brief break in this or that to share something. So a lot of these this or that's I thought up myself because I'm such a genius, but some of them, you know, I looked up online, and this was a this or that was suggested online.
Okay.
Honesty or other feelings. What? What does that even mean?
So you don't want us to answer it. We're just gonna.
You can answer it if you want. I don't even know how to answer that.
Honesty or other feelings? Like any other feeling?
Like that's just what it said. Honesty or other feelings.
Is horniness a feeling?
It is a feeling.
That's my favorite feeling.
You'll take that over honesty? Horniness over honesty?
Honestly speaking, oh man, oh, you know that feeling when like, okay, so like, you're at an airport and you see somebody picking up somebody, but you can tell by how they greet each other that they haven't seen each other in years, and it's the first time they see each other, and they're hugging each other so tightly,
beautiful.
and you're just like watching, but it's not weird, and like they're okay with it because you're like, this is beautiful, and I'm so happy for them, and you're just like, everything is love. We can change the world if that's what it is. That feeling, I like that feeling a lot.
Wow.
You like that
Instead of
feeling?
honesty, fuck honesty. I've been watching a lot of those.
I like the
online.
feeling right after you take a really satisfying poop.
Oh, you know what I call those?
What?
Bum comes. That's when you come out your bum.
See, here's the problem. Not only is it disgusting, but it's memorable, and so now that disgusting thing is stuck in my brain.
You wanna hear something? That's literally so. Yesterday, I came up with that yesterday as just like a dumb thought I had.
What a gift!
Right? Listen to this.
Thank you for that gift.
This is the serendipitous element of this conversation. I had this thought last night as I was in the apartment alone, thinking, thank God no one was here, because I would have told somebody, and then I would never, like, I'm glad I could repress this thought and never tell anybody. Then my roommate came home with his girlfriend, and they were talking, and they said something dumb, and I was like, now I gotta share something dumb that I thought, and I told them about it, and they were like, that's really funny, very accurate. I wouldn't be surprised if we started using that. And then I said, part of me's glad I said it, but I'm very terrified as to where this could lead.
Yeah.
And then you just brought it up, and I said it out loud on a recorded medium.
So it's funny how something is now
it's
a thing.
I'm so mad at myself.
Careful, you might end up with bum cum t-shirts.
That's what all I need is bum cum.
I'm going to gift you bumcum.com.
Oh God, no! that's
It's
gonna
definitely
lead
already a thing.
It's just,
first of
I'm
all.
going to buy it.
for
Well, if
sure.
I have to buy bum-cum.com, I will. Or,
Let's just say
.org.
or .ca. I can keep it Canadian.
Here's what you got to do. If you log on to bumcum.com and you close all 90 pop-ups that arrive, you'll see it's just a blank page.
I'm going to check bumcum.ca.
Jess, don't do it. Don't do it.
Oh,
It's
not a
available.
thing. Oh, what about .com?
Yeah, no.
We'll just have it.
Might prematurely end this podcast.
We'll just have it redirect to this podcast. We'll buy it and have it redirect
Yeah,
to this
do
podcast.
it. Do it to it. Damaged goods, aka bumcum.com.
Hey, don't put it on us. Don't try to transfer your nickname to us.
I don't want it.
Do you have any more of this or that's for
I
us?
have a few.
I'm so
Get us
mad
off
I
this
said
subject.
Card games or board games?
I like card games. Card games facilitate like conversation and drinks, and I can like, there's this more of like a social dynamic when you're playing poker or euchre or whatever. I like card games.
I play Magic the Gathering, so card games.
Oh,
What's
interesting.
up?
Do
Yeah.
you?
Do you play D&D at all? I know they're not the
I
same
don't play
thing.
D&D, but I have been invited to play soon, and I'm definitely excited.
I play
Jess recently
D&D.
started a
Yeah.
game up.
Yeah.
It's tight.
It's
She
so
comes
much
home at
fun.
3 in the morning. D&D is like a drug habit essentially.
Yeah.
3 in the morning, she like rolls into bed. She smells a little funny.
I like wake him up and try and tell him about it, and he doesn't care.
So my party went into this cabin in the woods.
That's exactly what I do, essentially.
She dirty talks in an old English accent now.
It's really fun. It's actually my turn to DM my group that we're doing it
that's
with.
sick.
We take turns, so now it's on me, which is like a big responsibility.
It's
like,
huge. There's a lot that goes into that.
I have like an app that like helps me keep all my ideas organized, and
that
like
way, if
it's
they
so
go
crazy.
a different way.
Yeah. So we can have so many options. Like, yeah.
There's so many fun stories about D&D. Like, there's somebody who like, I forget. I was reading it online. Somebody out there was like, one character was integral to the plot. Like, they needed like his eye for like a retinal scan later on. And the DM was like, well, you need him, but he died way too early, like because somebody said something. He's like, that character who was important said something, and then somebody else was like, I kill this person, and like rolled a 20, and so they killed him. But then they were like, well, you need to, so they weekend at Bernie'd him throughout the entire campaign.
That's amazing.
I love it.
Yeah.
All right. Binge watch or spread it out?
That's a good one.
Spread it out
Thanks,
about
that was mine.
TV
I
too.
wrote that.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I'm glad that joke didn't land.
Sorry, did I talk over it?
No, I'll say it again.
Yeah, please do.
Is Spread It Out still about TV?
Yes, it is.
Tight.
Yeah.
Tight.
Tight, tight, tight.
I was thinking about peanut butter. That is a good one. I'll say binge because that's mostly how I consume things lately. And either way, while you're binging, you'll end up spreading it out because the day is only going to be so long. And
Yeah, it depends on how
other
much
things
you
come
have.
up.
yeah,
We mostly binge, but recently, for example, what's the Pete Holmes thing?
Crashing.
Crashing.
Crashing's been coming out once a week.
So we really didn't want to do it all too fast. So we kind of the last few episodes were let's do at least one a day instead of 5 a day.
Yeah.
Yeah,
if we know there's limited episodes, Crashing's a good example of that. There's only 5 or 8 left. Yeah, I try to help spread them out. But shows where there's lots of them getting into something new, we binge through. If it's a new Netflix thing, I think tonight we're going to try out Evil Genius. I heard good things.
Oh, I watched that. I just watched that. Just binged
Did
through
you enjoy it? Yeah.
Very much.
So we're looking forward to getting into that. And
it's a little top-heavy,
Any
I'll
true
say.
crime thing, I
same,
feel like we
same.
could binge.
Oh,
Because
yeah,
who cares if we watch all of it?
Well,
Yeah,
it's
you're
because
trying to
you
get
also
through it and
wanna
learn
get
everything.
the story and not
Totally.
forget it.
There's so much
many moving
information.
parts. Making a Murderer, I saw 10 times, most of it in the background because I like the Wisconsin accent a lot.
What's the one we watched recently? And then Grady got mad at us for not saying the title on the podcast. The one with the cult members.
Wild Wild Country.
Did you watch that one?
Haven't yet. No, that's next.
Oh
Really
yeah,
cool.
do it.
Really cool.
I watched Evil Genius. It starts off way better than it ends.
Okay.
So it is so cool. The first few episodes are top heavy.
To be honest, Wild Wild Country's kind of the same because it starts off, you're like, what the fuck? And then
Right.
when it kind of goes on and on at the
Yeah.
end a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of true crime. I
Yeah,
feel like
true.
that. Do you guys listen to the last podcast on the left?
No, but I'm aware of it.
It's a great podcast, and they cover a lot of serial killers and stuff. Very satisfying because they make it a point to keep it interesting throughout.
I can't listen to those because then I can't sleep at night.
I love it.
She's very sensitive.
I'm sensitive.
I love it.
On that subject, I was watching my new favorite show, The Good Fight, which is only my new favorite show because I finished The Good Wife. And
What's the good fight?
it's the same as The Good Wife, but they basically took some of the characters and wrote a spin-off, what happened to them a year later.
Is that for real?
Yeah, it's
Oh no way.
so good, and there's more swearing and titties, so that's fun.
Okay.
But there's a plot point in it that brought something to mind, and it brought something from my childhood. So what happens in the show is a character is about to go to prison for 35 years.
Okay, that's a long time.
Yeah, it's a long time. So he makes the call. He picks up his phone and goes, "You said to call you if it was ever time. It's time." And he flees the country.
Okay.
And it brought to mind when I was a kid, I remember the first time I became aware of the concept of doing something wrong and then fleeing the country. That even being a possibility, that if you ever fucked up so large that you could not get out of it, that one of the options is
Leave the country.
to just fucking leave the country and go live in Mexico is the famous option. But you also, at a certain point in your life, you're introduced to the go move to Germany scenario, where in movies where there's he's in Sweden or wherever.
He's somewhere in Europe or.
And then the really crazy ones is when they go to Asia. And it's those. No one ever goes to anywhere but those 3 places. No one ever flees the country and goes to Iraq.
Yeah, or just to to Canada, I guess.
And if it's a comedy, maybe to Iceland. But that's it.
One thing I always laugh at when I'm listening to you, so I'm in the next room working in here while I listen to him watch these crime lawyer shows. And the same line that I hear over and over again. Okay, what is it called when they're talking to the judge before the court case, before they go to court? It's they're kind of having a meeting with the judge or whatever. What do you call that?
An arraignment?
It's is that what it is?
No,
I don't know. I don't know what that's
But anyways,
called.
it's usually in that, and the line is always, "Your Honor, this is a blatant blank to discredit my client's blank."
Yeah.
It's always that line. They say it so many times. There's slight variations of that when they're arguing in the
show
in
is
the
somewhat
pre-court
repetitive.
thing. It's so repetitive.
Is it a
they take the
deposition?
same formula and
It might be a
slightly
deposition.
change it.
They certainly are a lot of
Your Honor,
depositions.
this is a blatant attempt to sully the good name of my client.
Yeah.
And I will not have it. If this were in a courtroom, I would motion to have the prosecutor suspended and sent to your chambers.
Wow,
Exactly.
that's every episode ever. But here's the question: if you ever fucked up so large that you're
What country would
Is
you
Suits a
flee to?
lawyer show too?
Oh yeah.
Oh, no, what?
Yeah.
You like all those lawyer shows?
Yeah, they're just kind of like soap operas that are smart enough I can ignore the soap operas. Is kind of how I look at them.
Well, also, what's like I mean, like I riffed on the show is like what's fun about Suits is like it's a puzzle, but they don't actually give you the piece because it's like law speak.
Yeah.
So it's like it'll be like, well, you know what we're gonna do? We're just gonna do this instead. You can't do that. It's like, how do you know? Because when you do that, I'll do this. It's like, oh no, what does this all mean?
Yeah.
They'll be like, well, you can't do that. The judiciary findings of blank v blank are going to be saying this. Yeah, but you're forgetting about 1970s blank v blank. You're right, I did forget about it.
Well, it's hard to remember all the blank
crazy.
v blanks.
Yeah, exactly. There's so many v blanks.
There's so many v blanks.
There's too many.
Would you flee the country if you accidentally? So here's a case study I was telling Jess about. The guy John McAfee, the guy who made McAfee antivirus. He built a drone that was big enough to put a person in it. And he accidentally crashed the drone and killed the guy. It was like his neighbor's 18-year-old son or something.
No way.
Yeah. So he's like a billionaire who accidentally kills this guy. And you're not even allowed
So
to.
that's manslaughter.
Yeah, and you're not even allowed to fly a guy. And so they were basically going to crucify him.
Yeah.
So he leverages his money. He flees the country. He basically takes his paper and goes, "Hey, I have enough money to go on the lam forever," and flees. I won't get into the rest of that crazy story. It's crazy. But if you're John McAfee and that scenario happens and the thing crashes and you can make one phone call and leave the country and basically go into hiding and just live in some like windmill in fucking Sweden,
God, that sounds awful.
Do you do it or do you go to prison?
No.
Are you honest enough that you just go to prison for whatever you just did, or do you run, say, "Hey, fuck it, oops, I go on the lam"?
I mean, honestly, there'd be so much remorse involved. Like, you don't mean to kill a kid. Like, you gotta take it on the chin. You did something wrong. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Here's my problem.
So you would call the police and just go to prison.
Yeah, you got to do what's right by everybody.
Okay.
I don't know. Here's my thing.
That's very nice of you, sir.
If I wasn't a stand-up and like didn't have this demented, stupid gene in me that makes me need and crave attention so much, I would probably be a lawyer. But then that means also defending criminals. And if I wasn't able to do that, I'd probably be a cop, to be honest. Like, I like rules. They're simple. It's like, you know,
Interesting.
but also like I like letting people off with like just so you know, this isn't okay, right?
I like the face you made there.
It's like, hey.
I'm concerned, but I'm gonna let you off.
Look, I can't, like most of my stops for speeding would be like, look, just take it down a notch, all right? You shouldn't look. You and someone you know could get hurt. We've all think about it. You probably have lost somebody to this kind of thing. So
there's a lot of people's children driving on the street.
Get out there, take it down 20 kilometers, and I won't run into you again. All right.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. They're like, it's July. It's like, hey, I just said Merry Christmas. And then I'd be one of those cops who's like severely
a little wink and smile, and you walk off.
Yeah. I'm like, hey, don't worry about it. I said Christmas.
I already know Jess's answer. You would definitely not flee.
Yeah,
Jess is a wuss. She's like the most honest person ever.
No, I would never.
So if...
And the scary part is he's committing to me for the rest of his life. And if he did something, I would rat him out. Because it's like, I couldn't keep that secret. Yeah. I love him. I would not want him to go to jail, but there's no way he wouldn't want to live with me if I had to keep that secret. You know what I mean? Like,
well, then again, there's what's the legal term for this? You can't be called upon to testify against your spouse.
Yeah, that's true. I learned about this on the Good Fight.
Is that Jeopardy? No, it's not.
No,
Jeopardy.
But it is it's spousal. Oh, I can't remember. Spousal something.
Yeah, you told me about that recently.
It's the curse of the spouse.
So I
don't know.
I wouldn't flee if there was any chance of getting out of it at all, because I think I'm smart enough and I've got a good enough background in terms of like no other crazy crimes like this in theory or whatever, that if there's any chance of getting off, I would not flee. But if it was the case where they were like, listen, man, you're going to prison for 25 or 35 years. If I wasn't married to you and I didn't have to try to like had some responsibility to somebody, I would definitely flee. If I had the money,
so wait,
sure.
the thing that you were saying, so does that mean that if he does something and he flees, I don't have to tell them where he is, right?
No, you just don't have to testify testify against me in court.
But if the police come to my house and they're like, knock, knock, I don't have to say anything? Like, they can't make me say anything?
I think they still can make you say something.
Like,
you're screwed then, babe. Or just don't tell me. Just don't tell me where
I
you
wouldn't.
go.
Oh, I know enough not to tell you.
Bye.
She's so honest. She can't lie. She's like not capable of lying.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good quality, though.
It's a great quality. I'm not complaining. Listen, if
It's inconvenient sometimes, but...
I mean...
If you're going to marry somebody who cannot lie. That's what I say.
Well, like, here's something that interests me is, like, if there was a chance of getting out, is what you said. For me, that reminds me of Bud Dwyer, who was, like, a politician way back when, who was accused of, like... I think it was embezzlement or like something crazy, like fraud, and he was like a treasurer, like a minister of finance or something, and essentially he was like, well, no, you guys know that I didn't do this, and like there's like I'm not gonna hire a lawyer to defend myself, like I didn't do this. There's like all this mountain of evidence, here's all the documents, like I'm free. And then it came to trial and he was convicted. And so essentially at his last night to address like the people, it was televised live. Somebody brought him, at the end of his speech, somebody brought him like a brown paper bag as he was wrapping up. And he's like, now if this is going to scare anybody, he pulls out a gun and just shoots himself in the head in front of everybody. National, like live TV.
Never heard this
suicide.
Story before.
Unbelievable story. And this is a guy who had the utmost
I have heard
faith.
this story. I never heard it in that detail actually, but I just heard about the guy who shot himself in front of everybody.
Yeah, this guy had the utmost faith in the system and like lost, and so it was just like, well, you know what? Everything around me has failed me.
Wow.
Even though, and then years later, they determined that he was 100% innocent. They found out that he was absolutely innocent. So if they had done their job right the first time, like he'd be. Anyway.
Shit, man.
So it's like
Terrifying.
the idea of being like, if there's a chance of getting out, it's like, yeah, there's always a chance of getting out.
Well,
but then there's
I know.
also a chance of that shit
But
happening.
from my years of Suits and now The Good Wife and The Good Fight, there's definitely moments where the lawyer says to them, I think you have a pretty good shot here. And then there's times where they say,
Take the deal.
take the deal. They are coming for you.
Your Honor, I'd like a moment with my client. Take the deal.
25 years is good. They could ask for 35. Then it's just like, fuck that. Fuck that.
That's a lot.
I could just go live on a hut somewhere and pay a little like teenager to run to the nearby village and get me my necessary food to cook every day. And I'll just live in my little hut.
Couldn't podcast though.
No, couldn't podcast. The podcast would suffer. I also, when I was really young, and maybe this is where my early sociopath days come from, I used to have these weird thoughts about if I really needed to, I felt like I could just like escape into Canada and just like disappear into the crowd. You know what I mean? Just like move to Perry Sound, take a new name.
So how old were you when you were thinking about that kind of stuff?
Like
and
10.
And what kind of trouble you were getting in?
Nothing. I wasn't doing anything crazy. It was more just like
If I wanted to.
I was reading crazy books. I read a lot of novels at that age, like murder mysteries, and I'm just introduced to the notion that somebody murders their spouse and they flee. And so now I start thinking,
Oh yeah,
Could I-
Yeah, that's a fun thing to.
could I do it?
Jesus.
Could I do it?
You know,
First
that
of all,
this
if
is
you
Exhibit
murdered
A
me,
in there.
all my friends and family would come after you.
Question. I would never lay a hand on you. Don't worry. But so is it on a scale of 1 to 10? How abnormal am I for having those? I could get away with murder.
No, I think
could go
think
hide.
everybody has that to an extent.
Like I'll have vivid thoughts on like the subway, thinking like, oh, this crazy dude, if he's about to act up, then I can do this and then I can do that.
You kinda
And,
run
like,
through the scenario?
You run through like the stage combat in your head.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, so I'm not all the way crazy.
No,
you're not all the way
You're not
crazy.
Okay.
Not all the way.
Speaking of crazy, I found some interesting stuff today that you guys might be interested in about
Okay.
conspiracy theories.
Talk to me.
So, flat Earth, lizard people,
Facts, all real. Not even conspiracies.
crisis actors.
Oh, that's number one.
I did it for a few years after college.
I was basically researching like what are conspiracy theories and like what kind of people believe them and like what are they and what make people believe them. And basically they said after, so I'm going to quote this. So after the shock of senseless violence settles, conspiracy theories often follow. They pop up during elections, economic downturns, and international conflicts. It makes people like feel like they know something that others don't in our super confusing world. So it's like as confusing things are happening in the world and like war and frustrating things, it gives people like a sense of control and like they know a secret that the government doesn't know, or maybe that the government doesn't think that they know.
Them to know.
But it's like a way of like people like gaining like control over a system that they feel they have no control over.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Also, me and you talk about this a lot, and this maybe is semi-offensive, but a lot of people who believe in conspiracy theories sometimes aren't the smartest people.
Oh, yeah.
And there actually is some sense to that because they maybe in their life they don't feel like they're the smartest person. They always feel like everyone's smarter, everyone knows more than them. All of a sudden they have this thing where it's like, you're an idiot, you're a sheeple. I know the truth and you know nothing. And
a light bulb goes off,
like,
and that light bulb services a huge need in their life as well, that they actually know something that the people around them don't know.
Yeah, I never even thought of
really
it that
quickly
way.
though. Is the singular of sheeple just a sherson?
A Sherson?
I'm just wondering about that. I've never heard it.
Oh yeah,
singular.
sheeple. Sure.
I like that. That's a great question.
Yeah, that is a great question.
I definitely miss. It's crazy how many conspiracy theories are around, and like they've always been around, but it almost feels like religion just like lost its grasp on these people. You know what I mean? Like it used to be there were more people that are into religion than conspiracy theories, and lately it's just like, nah, there's a lot of people who just like believe in a godless world, but also believe that the earth is flat, or like.
Well, I think people who were religious for upbringing reasons and cultural reasons still are. People who are religious because they're the low-hanging fruit and they were looking for something. Now there are other things that they could potentially
I was going to say, I
on.
think there's something there where it's almost very similar to religion, where it's just like now that religion's not really that popular anymore. You know what I mean? It's like none of people our age group are like hella religious.
North America,
you know?
right? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah. At least around these parts,
Where
but,
these conspiracy theories are pretty much happening.
True.
And I think the internet also has a lot to do with it, right?
Yeah.
Because now, the guy who has way too much time to invest into it, and he's bipolar AF, and he's just like all day long thinking about this.
Yeah.
He has now a Blogspot account to publish that all day as well, right?
Do you guys remember the Avril Lavigne one?
No.
So in 2003, basically Avril Lavigne, and she's still kind of this like punk rock girl, but in 2003 around, she kind of started dressing more girly, and I think this like upset fans. So there was this big thing that's like, she's dead. She is dead, and this is a clone.
that's
This is like she died. And
This is the Paul
like,
McCartney thing all over again.
Yeah, there's a few similar ones like that. So they were just like, no, this is just a replacement named Michelle, and she's a little more girly than Avril.
I love that they even have a name.
Yeah, Michelle, ma'am. Have you guys heard?
She's known as Avril though, because
now.
Yeah.
Cosmetic surgery? Did they go all the way on?
Yeah, there's like she got the moles added and stuff like that. Well, and actually they point out ones
adding
that
moles
she
is
doesn't
quite
have.
difficult. I imagine adding a mole is not an easy task.
If it's just like if it's like a raised mole, that wouldn't be
I mean like
easy,
an
but
actual
no, I'm
mole.
talking like a beauty mark, like just like a little
drawing
flat
it on
one.
every day?
Yeah, that'd be pretty easy. So there was originally that the moon landing never happened, but then there's also just that the moon does not exist at all. The moon is not real.
That's real silly. That's oh god. I have a hard time even entertaining conspiracy theories. Just like my problem with the conspiracy theories isn't just that they exist and that there are enough people out there that believe in it to kind of give that community a sense of like, oh, we're not alone, and oh, we're not crazy. But the worst part is like the trolls out there that play into it.
That's a big part of it.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of things on the internet that are stacked, the believers and the trolls.
Yeah, it's true.
And then the trolls get like kind of intermingled and like
it gets kind of muddy.
Yeah.
Like where it's just
but
like
then the trolls point out something that like the actual believers didn't think of that kind of makes sense.
yeah, no, it's true.
And then it's like the opposite effect, and you're like, well, fuck everything, like
Yeah, the internet allows spread of information, right? It doesn't require that information be true. And so you have people who go, hey, I just found this new thing in my pocket that if I put information into it, sometimes it goes around the world. Let's see what happens when I load this into the gun and then this into the gun.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's a dick pic, and sometimes it's a conspiracy theory about how a random pop star is dead because she changed her haircut, or like whatever the case is. And I think that's often what it is. I think some trolls are hateful and shitty, and I will never defend the hateful, shitty trolls. But some trolls are also 13-year-old usses who went, oh, you just gave me a gun, I can load anything I want into it, and it just shoots around the world. When I was a kid, we put shit in the microwave to see what would happen. It's like not that different to be like, fuck Leonardo DiCaprio, enter and just see what happens.
I was reading the Yelp cannibal.
Oh my god, I haven't done one of those in a while.
Yeah.
So
That's
is
really funny.
troll-based.
Can
What
you
is it?
explain that?
Yeah, so it used to be a little thing that I used to do where I'd go on Yelp, and then so it was a bit that I tried on stage that never worked, so I decided to actually try it. So I went on Yelp as reviewers, so 3 separate reviewers for a cannibal magazine who would review restaurants, but every review would be subpar because they had no human flesh, which in the real world is a good thing. But I kept getting my accounts reported, and like because they were negative reviews, they still would I would put 5 stars, but they would,
Of course.
but I'd go into detail about my experience there and all that stuff, and it was
really
like
funny.
completely just like a joke, right?
Were they random restaurants, or had you actually
Random
been to these?
restaurants,
Okay.
random spots. Sometimes I'd been there, sometimes no. Most of them were just like places I found online where I was like, this would be a name of a restaurant somewhere, and then it'd be like, oh great, Kentucky, and then like we'll do that. But like the idea that talk about trolls. Yeah, this was just like a little joke, but it wasn't like oh, this is gonna be harmful. Like it was just like, hey, this is a review that some people might find humorous and other people will skip. You know what I mean? Like it's not.
It's a great joke. Just if you're a guy named Al and you run a place called like whatever is chicken in Kentucky, it's just distracting AF. There's a genius joke smack dab in the middle of his.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'd always pick places that had a lot of reviews. And
Sure, so
would
it's not
sync somewhere, right?
Totally.
That was it.
I like it though.
I had fun doing it, but the accounts kept getting I still have.
It's almost not worth maintaining it.
I still get emails from them.
How do you decide which platform to put a joke through? So So for example, I do
emails on there, but I do normally get a lot of emails to those accounts. Like, here's your week on Yelp, and it's like I haven't touched the account in a while because it was banned, and they're still sending me emails.
They're still trying to promote to you, even though you can't actually post reviews.
So I was just like, okay, let me see how long they'll keep this up.
A thing that I think about is, especially since Jess has started playing around with comedy, is I always write down these what I think is funny. I just have a list of things I think is funny, and I don't know if I'm going to write them into a script one day, or maybe if they become things we'll just talk about on the podcast, or who knows? You know what I mean? But then you look at some of them, and it's fun to think why is that funny? Is that something a character would say? It's that kind of funny, or is it a joke, or is it when you write things? Do you go through that kind of process of trying to figure what is this? So is this an Instagram joke, or is this a stage joke?
So with what I do for the most part, my longer stuff, the stuff that I tend to be proudest of, is stuff that is longer, a little bit more written out, a little bit more performative.
Sure. And
I refer to them more as pieces, and because they're I have a background in theater, and that's what they feel like, right? So it's very performative. It kind of derails if somebody heckles, that kind of thing.
Sure.
But it's everything in that regard will have something to do with stand up as an art and what we anticipate or expect from stand up. So where I come from is I'll watch stand up and think oh, that's funny. I hadn't noticed that about stand up, and then I'll try to subvert it. So the idea for this is just an example of a bit idea I had when I started, but haven't found a way to crack it yet. But it's something that I noticed and I'm still working on. So from 7 years ago, a lot of people will say a lot of the same stuff. They'll say oh, I was at this place recently, or I'm an alcoholic because I'm a comedian. I'm so broke because I'm a comedian. Is anybody celebrating anything? Oh, where are you from? I'm sorry. No, I heard you. I'm just sorry. That kind of stuff. And just like, I thought it would be fun to do tell people that I just visited a hypnotherapist to help me quit smoking and purge me of bad habits. And I'd really emphasize bad habits. And I'd be like, well, and I haven't felt like I smoke all day, so it must be working. And then I'd just go into like a hacky bit where I'd be like, so I was at a party recently. And then I'd cluck like a chicken. And so every time I'd say one of those things, I'd cluck like a chicken and be like terrified because I don't know what's going on.
Yes.
And eventually I'd just start doing jokes as a chicken because I think I need to power through because this hypnotherapist is fucked with my art. It's just like that.
That's amazing.
It's all very performative. It's all very long, and it all has something to do with like it's like a subversive nature to stand up.
Totally.
But then sometimes I'll think like a silly image and I'll tweet it out and I'll flesh it out later,
Totally.
Like I have this long bit that I've been working on now where I was at an open mic and I asked a friend, I was like, what, I'm going to go up there and riff on stuff. Like, what should I talk about? And she was like, I don't know, onions. And I was like, great. And I wrote this really short joke about onions. And then I rambled the rest of the set about that being the shortest joke I've ever written. And I thought it was so funny to be bragging about the shortest joke while making it longer.
Yeah.
So now I have that as like the beginning of a big chunk where I talk about it being my shortest joke, and it kind of loops around and has layers, and it's also like
the layering is really
layered.
Smart. I like that a lot. Actually, that's quite cool.
So I think that's how I work. Is like I tend to think in ways of like, I need to subvert this format. I need it to be something that people can enjoy if they're really paying attention, but also it's more rewarding if you're familiar with the art form. If you're familiar with stand-up, you're definitely going to like my act a lot more than if you're coming in blind.
But I think that's pretty self-aware because especially where you're at comedy-wise, it's not like you're on a sitcom where half your fans are coming in hoping to see the guy from the sitcom.
Right.
For the most part, they're fans of you or other stand-up comics coming in and developing their vibe as well.
And that's what I'm hoping for, right?
What comes next for you? What's the one thing that like we're really, I say we're, it's mostly me, it's starting to rub off on you. I'm really obsessed with like the process. Like how do I get to the next place? I remember all too well being the guy who moved to Toronto who couldn't book a show because I was just like an Italian kid who claimed he could rap and no one vouched for me. You know what I mean? And so I'll remember that all too well. And then building to a place where I now headline shows and I'm trying to become like a national headliner, right? That's the goal. So what? I'm sure that's a thing that you think about
all the time.
What's next for you? What are the things that you're working on over the coming year or two that are going to help us push you to being that guy that when we have you on in 2 years' time, our listeners coast to coast are like, oh, I know that guy. He's the guy from whatever. So what is it you're working on
right now? I'm always writing like scripts for stuff, like sketches and like pilots on a bunch of stuff that you've always got to be working. But right now I've been offered an opportunity to headline a festival in the States.
Cool.
But the thing is, because of the amount of money I'm being paid, I do need to get my American O1 visa.
Yeah, I did it one time.
Which is a nightmare.
It's a pain in the ass.
Yeah, because, you need
like 100 days before you
exactly,
need it and stuff
which is coming up soon.
Yeah.
So I need to do that soon. I'm working on that. I'm working with people. The thing is, they're expecting 3 years worth of dates to approve you for 3 years. And while I can probably achieve that, I just need to be able to honor it. Like the idea is that I'm dropping over $5,000 to maybe be told no, that I can't do it. But once I'm out there, I do have friends that hit the road and are like ready to request me to be their feature.
Wait, how does that work? You have to pay just to request the visa, and then you might not get it, and you don't get any money back?
No, nothing.
In music,
you have a union, and you go for a different visa, and it costs way less.
Yeah. because it costs
So
$1,000.
you have to pay a
apply
lot for just the application.
Oh
of it.
yeah.
Wow.
Because stand-up comedy isn't it isn't
Interesting.
recognized as its own art form. It isn't recognized as its own thing. It falls under a variety category, and you can either apply for a circus license, which oftentimes gets denied because you're not touring with a circus or something, or you have to apply as an individual of extraordinary talent, and so you have to have titans of industry kind of vouch for you and say like you are the only one in the world that can do what you do, and you
So it's either circus or that. There's
Yeah,
nothing in between.
there's nothing in between.
That's so crazy.
which is insane. Like the U.S.
Yeah.
government has no idea what to do with stand up, which is weird because that's where stand up lives. Like that's where you
Yeah.
can get paid for stand up. That's where you can actually like work.
That's interesting.
3 shows a night have stand ups on them every night. Every weeknight, there's at least 3 people making their television debut. Like, it's crazy. But to think that, like, I can't, there's some people who, like, just were on Conan and then still have their job, like, I don't know, in construction or something. You know what I mean? Or, like, there's some people who, like, just sold a TV show but are still bartending at
Yeah.
So it's like, it's not like, hey, I have $5,000 laying around. It's kind of like, and I just moved to this city where I could have just applied when I was living at home and like putting stuff away in the bank. And so now it's just in that period where I'm like, I need to make sure that I get this. And when I do, I'll be a headliner for a stretch in September. I'll be a feature for another major part of a year. But because I have my visa, because I've performed on festivals as a headliner, because I performed at Just for Laughs, because I have, oddly enough, I have a fan base out in the Pacific Northwest.
Cool.
And it's like, it's really hard to go out there. But like, hopefully the clubs out there will see that I can offer them a good weekend and they'll have me there, or I'll rent out a space and do something out there.
Yeah. We do a fair bit of that too.
Point is, I got to be a headliner at some point.
Yeah.
And even if I'm featuring, it'll only be featuring for people who are clearly above me. Like,
So those become a great statement in themselves. And
Yeah,
I've come here for this guy's a fan, and this is somebody who, they're smaller than this guy, but this guy's quite successful.
Yeah, and it's always going to be people who are coming out for...
Or girl.
So it's going to be people who are coming out for stand-ups who are in their own right already successful and have built-in audiences who understand stand-up.
Sure.
Like, you don't go out and seek somebody like Ron Funches without having some knowledge of stand-up.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Ron's a hilarious dude who's been in so many projects, who was on a network television show for many seasons, who's a sweetheart, one of the nicest guys, and you're rooting for him at all times. But you're not going to go see him do stand-up unless you're already familiar with stand-up or know that he does stand-up. And, like, he's someone that you love. Like, I love watching Ron. Like there's very few comics that you can watch and just like sit there and be like, I could let this go on for days, and then like to know that there's an audience that follows him, but he's also bringing out people with him that are lesser known and that are kind of catered
That's
to him.
another thing that's similar from hip hop and stand-up comedy, that idea of once you get into a position where you are headlining, you immediately become a resource to the 3 or 4 most talented people
and that's what I hope to
who
be.
need opportunities.
Yeah, that's what I hope to be. Is like, eventually maybe I'll start headlining places and I'll say, I've got people in mind that I already want to take on the road with me.
Totally. Yeah.
It's one of those things where stand up, while it is a solitary pursuit, it's just you. You're your own business. You're an independent contractor. You're the one person involved, unless you're like a dual act or like something like that.
That's pretty rare.
Yeah. But that means that like there's still, oddly enough, a community. Like, you work with people. They're friends. They're people that keep you sane. They're people whose work you admire. They're people that you get inspired by,
And the journey in comedy and music and other performing arts where there's so much competition is a long one.
Oh, it's insane.
Right? It takes a lot of years to get to the spot where you're respected. And in music, it's a bit different in that there's an expectation that if you're going to be successful, they'll know within like 5 years.
Yeah.
They want you to be young and sexy, right? There's a little bit more of that in music. But then what happens is when you get past 5 years, which I clearly have, is it becomes about industry cred now. It becomes about, can you make deals happen, and who do you know over at Universal? Who do you know over at? And so it's not the exact same, but you do kind of bridge into a kind of different role in the music business, and that you still put music out, but you become a boss, right? Versus in comedy, I think it's a bit different in that when you get to year 7, year 10, and in some cases you hear about like year 15, and then you find it, and then you become the best comic in the world.
Yeah. I mean, let's look at somebody
Later
like Tom
in their career.
Segura. Tom Segura been touring for a long time, but only recently has he been huge.
Netflix,
Now he's
right?
like mega huge.
Netflix picked up his independently shot special, and I think that was completely normal, and it was huge. It was played everywhere, and then he got mostly stories out of it and Disgraceful. And Tom is such a captivating performer, but we all knew that before Completely Normal was on Netflix. I have his 2 first albums. I know that on the Completely Normal special, he re-recorded a story from his first 2 albums.
Interesting.
You know,
it's
what
always
I mean?
fun when you see that stuff.
Yeah.
You're just like, oh.
So it's like you get so it takes a while for people, but then when it hits, it really hits, and then you're like, oh, his friends are now on the road with him, or like people that get to work with him get to put that in their bios. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah.
To think like
Even working with him becomes a leg up for somebody else, right?
Like, I got to host for Kurt Braunohler when he was in town.
Cool.
Kurt Braunohler, apparently, since a couple of my friends came out to see me, they were like, yeah, you are clearly so clearly influenced by him that you kind of sound like him. And I'm like, oh, wow. Okay, hadn't noticed that. Been trying to just keep my voice from being too similar. And had I known, I would have been like, as much as I want to work with you, I don't know if that's best. And like, I think I would have still done it because I'm such a huge fan.
It's a great opportunity to work with your heroes.
But the idea is, like, as soon as that night was done, I went to my website. I was like, I worked with Kurt Braunohler, one of my heroes. You know what I mean? I worked with, all these amazing comics that I got to work with. That kind of just, like, they've been so kind. Like, they've offered, like, hey, if you're in town, like, please let me know, use my name if you need, like, a leg up. Like, so many, and that's what the community vibe is like.
Totally.
Where I bumped into, like, maybe just, like, hanging out on the street, Big J Okerson. And I just...
Jay's hilarious.
Yeah, I just interned at Just for Laughs. I'd met him in the hallways. I was like, hey, how you doing? I went to park my car, and I bumped into him where I parked my car, and it turns out that's like the hotel he was staying at. He's like, what are you doing? I was like, I'm just going to get food before the show, and I'm coming to the show. He's like, oh, well, like, you going to do a spot then? Like, come do a spot. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to say no. Let me,
Yeah, that's great.
do that. So it was like, it's crazy to think that, like,
those are the experiences that make it worth
necessary.
it, right?
That's what makes it. So I just want to be able to do that for someone.
For sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
The ultimate goal is to make enough of a dent in stand up to be like, mentioned in someone's bio, or like.
Yeah, that's a good point. I hadn't thought about it in that context of, like, getting to a spot where somebody can say,
oh,
hey,
has featured for.
Yeah, I worked with Mike Carrozza, and that's why you should book me.
Yeah. It's like, I was good enough to do this.
Yeah, that's quite cool.
You know how many people I opened for Tig Notaro, and a lot of people were very impressed with that, and I've gotten more work because of
That's cool.
Her people chose me. She didn't choose me.
Yeah.
She got there late enough for her to miss, like, most of my set. But what she watched, like, thankfully, we talked about it later. She was like, that was very funny, and, like, I'm sorry it was late.
But those are the big wins, right? Because
a lot of your credits are like that too.
Yeah, a lot of my credits are like that, where it's I built a relationship. So I built a relationship with a guy named DJ Fat Philly. Okay. DJ Fat Philly is Croatia's #1 hip hop guy. Okay. He's had a radio show there for 20 years.
Unbelievable.
He's friends with DJ Premier. He's known him since he was like 18.
No shit.
You know what I mean? Like, he's an OG
out in Croatia.
And when all those guys came through Croatia for the first time, he's the one who booked them, or he was the DJ for the show or whatever. And so I met him now as an older gentleman. He's not even that old. He's just like a boss now. He's been doing this for a long time. And I met him, and we had a beer together at a music conference. And then he came into CMW, Canadian Music Week here in Toronto.
Yeah.
I met up with him again. It's, hey, what's up? You have a beer with him again. And then next thing you know, there's an email saying, hey, come out and play my festival and open for Chris Brown, Wiz Khalifa, Kehlani. And it all came from beers with the guy who books it.
Yeah.
I don't know Wiz Khalifa. I don't know if even Wiz Khalifa saw my set.
Yeah.
But I definitely but the win is in the relationship with Fat Philly. You know what I mean? And those are the ones, is building really like lifelong relationships with people who are in the business as lifers and who book these things and who
see it in you.
Yeah, and it's just like, hey, and that's the thing that I'm really good at, is knowing the ask. Hey, man, I need 10 minutes of stage time. I can get my ass out to Croatia.
Yeah.
Don't worry about. And he's just like, yeah, we could definitely book you out here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
We always talk about one of the things about getting booked, whether you're a comedian or an artist, is just like being a cool person too. It's like you can be the most hilarious guy, and if you're always drunk and being belligerent like backstage and stuff like that, you're not gonna.
People that are so funny that don't get booked because of that.
Yeah, for sure.
Because even when you're off stage, which is most of the time, they have to be around
You're
you.
just a loose cannon. Like they don't know what they're booking. They don't know what's gonna happen.
Rule number 1: don't be a dick.
Yeah,
that's it.
Don't be a dick.
I mean, asking is like the number one thing, right? Like you don't ask, you don't get. And honestly, I don't know if I can talk about this, but I basically just like took a shot with this application, this visa application that I'm like working on now, and I just messaged a big name in comedy, like not just in stand-up, but like in comedy period. Like I'd worked with him once and I took a shot. I was like, would you at all consider maybe like just signing a letter of support saying that I'm the only person that could do what I do and that you think I should be working in America and that the States would benefit from it. And he was like, yeah, just tell me what to say.
Wow.
And I was like, that was a huge thing. Huge. And so asking is like, it's something that young comics and I guess artists just don't know about. It's
especially
like,
if you can identify a specific thing that somebody can do that will dramatically help your career, that is very easy for them to do. You streamline it very.
Oh yeah.
If you could say this, it would be a huge help for me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? In Canada, we have a grant system to help fund things.
Yeah.
And anytime if I get booked for a music festival and I get like a letter that says, we formally invite Ill Vibe to perform at our music festival, Factor pays for it every time. So a important key thing I teach young artists is, if you talk to a booker, explain that to them.
Yeah.
That if they give you a letter, you get the thing paid for.
Yeah. Well, that's in music.
I'm talking just about learning how to properly inform people, how you can make that easy for them. Make it really easy for them. If he's the biggest booker in Europe, how can you make it that you're the easiest person to put in that spot that there's 1,000 people that want?
Exactly.
So maybe you can't get that exact funding. And in fact, my friend Allison Dorr talks to me a lot about how there's...
I have to... Oh, man, that's so fun.
She's
I
like
got to tell you about
one of my
Allison.
top 10 favorite humans in the world.
She's so great.
And she says there's not enough funding for comedy, and we've spoken at length about that.
Yeah. I mean, Allison is actually... when I moved here, I moved at the end of October, and then, let's just say early November. Early November rolls around, and there's the Just for Laughs tour. Nick Ederott, TJ Miller, Reese Darby are on tour going through North America. Probably just Canada, I think. But,
Sure.
I know Nick Vatterott and have been a fan of his for a while, and we met in New York, and he's a buddy, and so I was like, Nick, what are you guys doing? Let me come hang out. Let's catch up. Tell me everything. He's like, we're at the Garrison. Come hang. Come hang. And we get there. I get there, bump into Nick, see TJ, and then John Doerr is there, and I'm like, okay, great. Let's go to the bar. Let's hang out. He's like, yeah, my sister's here too. I'm like, no shit. I haven't seen Allison in a while. And we get to the bar. She turns around. She's like, you're the guy. And I have no idea what she's talking about. Let's backtrack to this summer at Just for Laughs. My second time performing on the festival. That's
really cool.
Last summer, I ended up being on one show formally, and then the programming team was just like, can you do these? Can you do this? Can you do this? This guy asked for you. This guy asked for you.
Cool.
This guy asked for you. Come do these shows. And I was like, perfect. And then I got the guys who run Set List to put me through. So I did.
That's great.
So on the outdoor stage, I did set list on one of the last days, and I look, I'm gonna be conservative here, and I'm gonna be a total braggart.
Flex on them.
I fucking murdered, annihilated.
Mike.
There was no roof outside already,
like
but they
that.
built a roof so I can raise it. Like, it was
like
crazy. I killed so goddamn hard. I was mad I didn't know anybody from there. I found out later that night because like that was it for me. That was the last show I had in the festival. I was depleted. I'd been staying up until 4, waking up at 9 every day for 2 weeks before that. I was like, you know what? This is a perfect way to end the festival. I'm gonna go to bed. I drove home, fell asleep, woke up at like 3 a.m. My phone was buzzing. It's like, the person who suggested me to set list was like, dude, there's like a bunch of managers and agents looking for you right now. Like, where the fuck are you? And I like, it was like 10 or something. And I was like, well, shit, you know, I hope you gave them my name. She was like, I did, like, found out that John Catucci of the Doo-Wops like saw my set, so was like talking about me. He's like somebody I watched on TV since I was a kid.
Those are the best moments, man.
And then I was like, man, I wish more people saw it, you know. And then Allison at the Garrison, the night I'm hanging out with Vadarot, unexpectedly seeing her brother, seeing her, she's like, that's you. Like that, I saw you murder at the set list.
Wow, that's
and
cool.
like people were looking for you, and they said they'd never seen anybody kill that hard at the set list for a first time.
Wow.
And I was like, thank you so much for turning around, seeing TJ Miller and your brother John Doerr, and being like, I'm the guy.
That's really cool, man. And those add up.
Yeah,
like,
man. Oh, it's
people can't
so
take
good.
those moments from you when someone sets you up with a big opportunity and you go and you deliver.
Yeah,
they can't be taken from you, and that's how you start to build cred. And I'm glad to hear that, man, because I'm definitely I'm jaded too. I've seen a lot of talented people. Where early on I emotionally get connected in their story, and then 3-5 years pass and you're like, I don't think they're gonna do anything, and it's like no hate there, it's just you're hoping, and then you go, I think they would be putting work if this was going to be a thing or whatever. So then
tough.
I became fans of you, so it's cool to chat with you, hear your story, and to hear that you're like, hey, I'm playing some big stages and I'm murdering them, because that's super dope. Because that means like we can be even more excited and follow your story as it grows.
Hopefully it keeps going this way. You know what I mean?
When you do your big Netflix special, I would like to provide the walkout music. If I'm not saying you have to agree to it now, but maybe consider it so that when it happens.
I mean, it's the simplest thing is to ask, right? You know
that's
what I mean?
it. And I'll even write a song about you.
Do it, man. I'd be into it.
What was that? What was I singing earlier? Mike Carrozza, Mike Carrozza.
Oh yeah. I don't know if you can get the clearance on that.
Hey, Tech 9 got it.
Amadeus?
Yeah.
You know, that's the first time someone's done Amadeus instead of My Sharona for my name.
Oh yeah.
A lot of people do My Sharona, and I'm just like
outside the box. Damn,
outside the books. There we go.
I know what our kill time is, because I
books.
know he has to get to a thing tonight. We're not quite there, but we're getting close.
Soundhound?
Yes, and also I wore this hat, and I don't want to. I'm not wearing it again.
Yeah,
so can you? No, why don't you tell people what happened?
Why aren't you wearing it again?
Okay.
Do you see what logo's on this hat?
Yeah. Are you a Raptors fan?
Well, I do live in the city of Toronto.
I know.
All right. Before we get too far into it. So Anthony's birthday was recently, a couple weeks ago. Happy birthday. And he has this beautiful orange shirt, and one of the gifts I got him for his birthday was this orange fanny pack, because Anthony
really
likes
cool.
to wear fanny packs, and he always likes to wear either matching shoes or maybe a matching hat. So I looked
look
like
good.
everywhere across the Eaton Center looking for like a nice ball cap that matched this fanny pack, and I was holding caps like up to it, like super thinking about it, and then I found this one hat, and it was actually on sale too, and I was like, oh, it matches perfectly. So I got it for him. I don't know much about sports. It turns out this is the Raptors' rival team who just
They
beat
swept them 2 years in a row.
2 years in a row.
So if he wears this hat out in Toronto,
Yeah, so I figure I can't wear this hat for like another 6 months
for a
outside.
bit. Yeah.
So I'll wear it today on the podcast.
Doesn't it match so nice?
It does look nice.
It made me laugh so hard. She's like, so that's why it was in the bargain bin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Babe. It's literally the only, and I don't even
I
like
spent
sports.
so much time trying to match it.
But it's like
You
the
found
only
it, though.
team that I probably can't get away with wearing. I don't think there's even another team that this
Hey, man,
rivalry
just
with
wait a
Toronto
couple
like
months.
that.
Don't
It's
even
all
worry
good.
about
yeah, exactly. No one's going to care next
It's all good, but I wanted to mention it because it just made me laugh so hard, especially because at first the the Raps are playing so well. I'm like, it's not going to be a thing. Even though it's not a Raptors hat, it's not going to be a thing. But then, of course, game 1, game 2, game 3, and I'm like, babe, that hat that you bought, it might be going on a shelf.
Well, the whole thing about the flagrant foul not being called on time is also a big contingent.
Because it's like there's so much emotions and like pent up rage about the whole thing.
Yeah.
So the hat is deaded.
That's okay.
Rest in peace. Cool Cavs hat that you bought me. Why don't you Soundhound it up and we'll get close to the wrap up.
All right, so we haven't done this in a few episodes. So for those of you who don't know, Soundhound is an app that takes your humming or doo-doos or la-las and tells you what song, like it knows what song that you're singing. Super cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick 3 songs, very common songs, out of a bucket. Yep. And I'm going to pick what my favorite out of those 3 and hum it to you guys. Yes. I'll tell you if the app got it right, and then we'll see if you guys get it right.
Okay, for this, I'm going to wear the headphones again.
Okay.
Cool. It'll make sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so getting out our bucket.
Why don't you just start with 1 for now? See if you know it.
I like picking 3 because then I can
3
pick
and
my
then
favorite
picking the fave?
Okay.
Okay.
I'm not mad at it.
Best of 3.
It's a little bit of an easy out, but
it is a bit of
I have the easiest out in that I don't play this game, so...
Okay. All right. So I have picked my favorite.
All right.
And I'm gonna sing it into the app. So don't guess until I tell you.
Do you got it queued up? So the Soundhound app?
Yeah.
So don't guess until the app.
So let her sing. She's gonna
tell you. I'll tell you whether the app got it right.
Tell you to guess.
Okay.
Okay. La 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 la. La 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 la.
Easy.
La. Okay, that's usually all you have to do. So let's see if the app got it right.
Smoking crack.
The app is searching. Yeah, it got it right. I almost said it out loud and messed it up.
Pipe.
Yeah.
Smoking crack.
Yeah, that's.
What you want?
Okay, you guys clearly know what it is.
Yeah, it's. Do we say it?
Yeah, you can say it.
Oh, it's "Fly" by Sugar Ray.
Sugar Ray.
Correct. Are you interested in playing this game?
Sure.
All right, let's do it.
Oh, the pup is up and with a bone in her face. Oh, so cute.
I'm really infatuated with one-hit wonders like Sugar Ray because they really have like the best and the worst of the music industry all wrapped up into one. You know what I mean?
Can you name another Sugar Ray song?
They had a couple songs like "Every Morning When
that's true.
And they had probably like 2 or 3 at that level. But it's just funny because like that Mark McGrath guy became like the host of like Entertainment Tonight for a minute.
Right. I forgot about that.
Or whatever. And like it's just like you're famous as fuck. You and I talk about this in real life all the time. You're famous as fuck, but nobody wants any new music from you.
Aw.
You know what I mean? So you're like tied into these songs from 20 years ago. Anyway.
All right. So Mike has his song ready. When you see the thing start spinning, or here.
Okay, I can get going. La 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 la.
Let you go, baby. Don't need
I mean that's a pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean,
so the app got it correct.
Amazing. Is it? I Want You Back?
Yeah.
Ooh, baby.
I want you back.
When I was young, I bought the Jackson 5 Greatest Hits on double cassette.
Ooh, buddy.
2 cassettes of hits.
Yes, sir.
Including weird emo song Ben.
I love Ben.
I can't do Ben.
That still fucks.
I love Ben.
I'm over it. But isn't it funny? Like that it's a thing at all. It's like this weird song
About
a mouse.
Do you like "Still Loving You"? The "Still Loving You" by the Jackson 5.
I don't know that one as well.
It's a slower
I
one as
vaguely
well.
remember it, but I don't know it as well.
It's good.
What's your favorite Michael Jackson song?
That's a great question.
I think I know yours.
What's mine?
"Rock with You."
I do like Rock With You a lot.
One.
Man in the Mirror has a special place in my heart.
Yeah. Mine is "Will You Be There," the Free Willy song.
Oh my gosh, you like
course
the
it is.
'90s Michael Jackson.
I love that song.
You're so wholesome.
Yeah.
You're one of the most wholesome people I know.
You know, I used to be able to play that on the recorder.
Oh man,
that. What's your
Remember
favorite
when
Michael
everybody
Jackson
had to do it? It's tough, right?
Yeah, maybe "The Way You Make Me Feel."
The Way You Make Me Feel is classic.
Yeah.
I love that clap on that song.
Don't Stop Till You Get Enough is fantastic.
Yeah.
One of the best songs in the world. Just Michael Jackson's catalog is incredible. We can go through
Once
all
again,
of
breaking new ground. Michael Jackson, talented artist.
Talented.
Anything you want to promote, my dude? So we're gonna put this out this week. So you've got a big show Friday night, right? Is it Friday?
Monday night, actually.
Oh, it's next Monday. Sorry, so it's next Monday,
May 21st
at the
9
Comedy
p.m.
Bar.
Comedy Bar. You can get your tickets at comedybar.ca. It's called Figure It Out with Mike Carrozza. It's a show that I used to run in Montreal that I'm finally doing in Toronto. So the idea is like, it's more of a workshop feel, but it's an interruption show, but also I'm there to help the comics kind of thing. So I have an amazing lineup of very fun comedians. And the whole idea is that I sit on a chair with my own microphone and I'm there to riff with the comedian if they want me to. Or they'll do a joke and I'll ask them about the bit. Like I'll ask them a question. Or if I know that they're doing a bit that I know, I'll like ask a leading question to see
to take
what
it in
the
the direction
timing
maybe
is. You know, so the idea like I want to try to force things in a particular direction, or I'd like to see if maybe like a hiccup in timing might be fun, or like
Are these peers or are these like more like? I don't want to say open micers, but like
their peers. Their peers are like actually people that are higher
cool.
up than me.
Cool.
Great comics. Like the lineup is amazing. I have Chris Sandiford, Noor Hadidi, Ryan Dillon, John Mostyn, Chris Middleton, Natalie Norman, Hodo Hersey, who I mentioned earlier, Mark Little, who's like one of the best stand-ups in the world, one of the funniest people, period. Mark Little has won Canadian Comedy Awards, won Just for Laughs Awards, was named Variety's Top 10 to watch in like 2015.
So how many comics are on the show on Monday that you do this with?
9. The last one is Quincy Jones, who had a special on HBO. Was on Ellen, and like they got him a special. He's amazing. He's a buddy of mine, flying in from LA to do the show, and
That's really cool.
Yeah, so we're doing the whole thing, and there's 9 comics. We're keeping it to 7 minutes each, but I'm on stage the entire time, and it takes a lot out of me. I'm gonna be ready to hang out and party right after. So 9:00, Comedy Bar, main room, $10.
And then if people, because I think a lot of our listeners will check it in the next week, but for the ones that kind of coast through from episode 1 up and they catch us in the future, where can they generally see you? Is Comedy Bar home? Do you call that home for you? Do you think catch you every week there?
At the moment, yeah, I'd say I'm there frequently, but I am one of the new hosts for the Ossington Open Mic, so
cool.
You can see me most Mondays at 10 p.m. I'm at the Ossington,
and that's Bloor and Ossington area.
That's Queen Ossington. Yeah. Otherwise, just follow me on Twitter at Mike Carrozza. That's probably where I post the more important stuff. Hopefully in September, I'll be in Boise at 208 Comedy Festival. They can't put my picture on the website yet because I don't have a visa.
Sure.
So they're trying to avoid anything that'll get me into trouble.
Smart.
Yeah.
We need a long career, not one where the Homeland Security has you on a red flag
Exactly.
list.
Well, look, if they ban me from the States, I'll go to England. We'll
do the Band from America Carrozza tour in England.
Yeah, let's do the whole thing. Let's hit up Croatia.
We'll brand
do some
it.
shows.
I'll call Fat Philly. You love him. No, you're the man. I'm honestly a big fan, and this podcast in a lot of ways is our like dabble into the comedy world of like just like riffing ideas. It gives us a platform to work our ideas out, to potentially have our comedy friends come through. Even when we went to the Comedy Bar, it feels fun to have a podcast and then be out in that world and just feel like, we could find our favorite comics and then invite them on our podcast and talk about the art form, and it's a real blast to
a lot of comics
to interact with the thing that you're a fan of. You know what I mean? And I really, one of my favorite things to do on the podcast now is, in addition to of course the people that listen to it, is we pull the clips and we put them on Instagram, and that's been a blast because you find a moment that really sums up some of the great combo we had, and then you can really put that in front of like 25,000 people, which is a lot more than the subscribers that we have right now because of the power of this brand new website. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's Instagram.
People like their bite-sized stuff.
People like things in bite size.
You guys remember when
we go hard on that
Instagram
stuff.
wasn't an online thing? It was just a camera filter.
No,
I remember that.
I don't remember that at all.
That makes
It was way back when.
Yeah,
it was just like you took pictures and ran it through an Instagram filter.
and then you could post it on Facebook and
You
stuff.
can post
right?
it on Facebook, and then it became its own network.
That's interesting. I didn't know that. I did know it started off as a photography centric
device, but I didn't realize that it actually was just filters.
Yeah, it was just filters, man. I remember putting out
those
my
filters
first demo.
support a lot of our businesses these days.
Oh man, yeah, those filters are. God bless. You know what I mean?
God bless Zuckerberg and his filter app.
And where else? Where else can everybody find you guys? Ooh.
Damaged Goods Pod, right?
Yeah.
I love the fucking setup. I love that. That's a pro right here.
Get off my notes here.
Damaged Goods Pod. You're 4 Jess Robert. The number 4 Jess Robert.
Number 4.
Correct.
I'm at Ill Vibe on Instagram. Unfortunately, there is some other motherfuckers, and we have a social media war over handles. So they have at Ill Vibe on Twitter. So I'm at Ill Vibe Music on Twitter.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And one of us is eventually going to get rich enough to buy the other one off of the platform we don't have. But for now, I have Facebook and Instagram, and I figure that's really where you want to be.
Ill Vibe Music on Instagram too?
No, I don't also have that.
Get it in case.
Fuck that.
Get it in case. Squat on that thing.
Squat it?
Squat it. What if they offer you like a shit ton for Ill Vibe on Instagram?
Oh, then I'll just switch to like it's Ill Vibe or something.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? Yeah. I'll get creative.
You don't want the continuity with the Twitter and the...
Oh, whatever.
I don't even have to worry about
in this theoretical scenario, if this DJ collective from Philadelphia does so well that they buy my Instagram for $10,000, I'll make do with a lack of continuity. This is the most convoluted social media drop ever. It's Damage Goods Pod everywhere for the podcast.
Yeah.
I think that's it.
That's it. Give me a better out than this. I think that's it.
Thanks for listening.